Chapter 13:13. Arbor fled because she sensed more than 10 auras of varying strength attacking her. This meant that Old Monkey's companions were chasing after her. She would not foolishly stay in the same spot and wait for them to gang up on her. What kind of joke was this? Although she did not know who these people were, Arbor had some speculations in her heart. Old Monkey's companions chased after her quickly and leaped up. A palm wind mixed with thick mystic energy attacked Arbor's back again. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 teleportation talismans were used, and Arbor's figure instantly moved to 1,000 meters away. Damned brat, she has talismans on her. Quickly capture her. More than 10 people rushed out from the dark and surrounded Arbor, intending to force her into the encirclement. Arbor had been attacked by Old Monkey's mental energy at the beginning and felt a slight pain in her head. After that, the attacks from those people were still manageable for her. It was just that Old Monkey had more companions now, which was not a good thing for her. If she was really captured by them in the encirclement, she would definitely be beaten up by them. She was a little speechless. If she had known earlier, she would not have teleported. Or if she had brought Qing Wan and the others with her, at least she had a helper now. That impulse was the devil. The teleportation talisman was not reliable. If the teleportation talisman could speak, it would definitely complain that she was not reliable. It was not like she did not know its settings. Now that she had teleported so many times, she herself did not know where she had teleported to. What was hateful was that Old Monkey. After being attacked by her mental energy, he still dared to use his spiritual consciousness to lock onto her. No matter where she teleported to, he was like a damned fly, immediately buzzing towards her. Ha! She wanted to see how long this Old Monkey's spiritual consciousness could lock onto her. Anyway, she had a lot of talismans. I'll teleport, I'll teleport. I'll teleport, teleport, teleport. If one looked down from the sky now, they would find that this little fellow was very funny. She was holding a bunch of talismans and teleporting around the city lord's residence. That figure was like a ray of light, appearing in the east with a whoosh and then in the north with a whoosh. In the end, she accidentally teleported in front of the dumbfounded Old Monkey. When Old Monkey discovered that the little girl was right in front of its eyes with its spiritual sense, it couldn't react in time and struck out with its palm. The little girl suddenly teleported away again. Qiao Qiao. Eldest Qin and the others were also searching for Qiao Mu's whereabouts. He happened to see her little body flash and disappear. She was really a troublesome girl. Damn it! Old Monkey and the others were enraged. More than a dozen people were chasing a little girl who was a level 9 mystic cultivator, yet they freaking spent so much effort. It was simply infuriating. Old Monkey and the others were enraged, and they released their Xian beasts one after another. Old Monkey took a step forward and sat on the big black dog. He hissed, forward. His spiritual sense was running out. If he couldn't find that damned little girl before the deadline, he wouldn't be able to lock her down. Not being able to lock her down meant that it would be even harder to find her. This damned girl was like a slippery loach, going east and going west. It was simply infuriating. I'm here. Qiao Mu roared, and she stuck another teleportation talisman on herself, leaving eldest Qin and the others, who were chasing after her, in the dust. Situ Yi's mouth twitched, and he couldn't resist rolling his eyes. I think that girl is having a lot of fun. What's going on? Liang Qingqing was exasperated. Are we still going to continue chasing? Chapter 13:14. After her, Situ Yi said with a nod. There was a group of people with unknown intentions chasing after Jojo, so they naturally couldn't leave her alone. Student Arbor teleported in a big circle and sighed, feeling somewhat disappointed and frustrated. As expected, this teleportation talisman teleported randomly. She had tried teleporting so many times, but the location was never the same as before. Honestly speaking, she felt a little dizzy from the teleportation. Lousy talismans. Arbor put away a handful of talismans and stayed where she was. She calmly looked at Old Monkey's two companions as they ran toward her with malevolent expressions. These two people were both riding a gale wolf. She didn't know if they were uniformly equipped by the higher-ups. This kind of gale wolf was the most common mystic beast. Its specialty was that it ran fast and generally didn't have high attack power. Arbor winked at the two people mockingly. With a slight movement of her fingers, an imperial thunder barrier enveloped the two people. Old Monkey, who was chasing over on a large black hound, shouted in alarm when he saw this from afar, "Get out of the way." But it was already too late. The Imperial Thunder Barrier enveloped the two people's figures and immediately activated a series of crackling thunder and lightning. The well-shaped lightning cut the two people into small pieces in a matter of minutes. Arbor expressionlessly stood outside the Imperial Thunder Barrier and shook her head. "It's quite disgusting. You're the one who fucking made it disgusting." Old Monkey's eyes were brimming with intertwining fury, and he roared, "Go!" The remaining dozen or so people of unknown origins all mounted gale wolves and rushed toward Arbor at an extremely fast speed. A trace of viciousness faintly appeared in Arbor's eyes. When those people were only a meter away from her, she suddenly leaped up and flashed slightly in midair. Two profound armaments appeared in her left and right hands. "Damn girl, you have a lot of good stuff in your hands." Old Monkey sneered and firmly locked onto her with his spiritual perception. "But it's a reckless waste of natural resources in your hands. You're just a minor level 9 mystic cultivator, so you have no use for them at all." Boom. Boom. What? Old Monkey and the others quickly lay down on the ground, but there were still two people who were close to Arbor. They were directly sent flying by the power of the profound artifact's self-explosion. They landed on the ground and spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. She actually, Old Monkey and the others were so angry that they were trembling. This wretched lass who was recklessly wasting God's gift had actually casually caused the profound armament to self-explode. It was obvious how precious each of these profound armaments were. How many people spent their entire lives chasing after a profound armament, but they could not get it. And she actually used it as a joke. Was this something a human could do? He was even richer than the nouveau riche. While Old Monkey and the others were dumbfounded, Arbor waved his hand, and the translucent shadow of the defensive thunder barrier enveloped the other two. This time, Arbor didn't immediately open the defensive thunder barrier to attack. Instead, he sent down a ferocious spiritual sense, which directly rushed into the two's consciousness and began to seize their inner worlds. "Ah! Ah!" 2 cries of different pitches came from inside the defensive thunder barrier. Old Monkey came back to his senses in shock and hastily said furiously, "Attack! Attack! Focus fire! Kill this wretched lass for me." This wretched lass was too arrogant. Her entire body was filled with treasures. It simply couldn't make people angrier. At this time, a dense oppressive aura exploded from Arbor's body. All the beasts felt this oppressive aura, and those gale wolves trembled as they lay down on the ground. Even the large black dog under Old Monkey's but also curled up like a kitten after struggling twice. Chapter 13-15. Previously, it was precisely because of the interweaving of the 2 sacred beast auras. That was why Pundit Zhao and the other 2 didn't dare to release their mystic beasts when fighting Arbor. Because they felt that it was useless to release them, and that they would only be suppressed in vain. At that time, if their mystic beasts were the first to be injured, the unlucky ones would be their masters who would suffer a backlash. This situation was extremely bad. And now, Old Monkey and the others felt a sense of danger pouncing on them. Their mystic beasts were suppressed by the other party's sacred beast aura to the point that they couldn't move. This caused Old Monkey to be both terrified and angry out of humiliation. It was also their fault for not making things clear before. They always thought that dealing with a little girl from the lower realm with no background would be a very easy matter. Damn it, they didn't expect that this damned girl would have so many treasures on her. No wonder the higher-ups valued her so much and gave a death order to deal with her as soon as possible. If she was allowed to develop in this state, no one could predict how far she would grow in the end. Old Monkey closed his eyes and coldly shouted, "Everyone move aside." His eyes narrowed slightly, and an invisible force condensed in his conscious like a whirling storm. He didn't believe that he couldn't deal with the damned girl in front of him with his level 2 spiritual sense. That's right, he was a great spiritual master suppressed to level 15 mystic realm, and Old Monkey's spiritual sense had just entered the level 2 realm 2 days ago. Among all the people who came with him, his spiritual sense was extremely high, which was extremely rare. The damned girl in front of him was merely a level 9 mystic cultivator. She relied on the numerous treasures on her to be so impudent in front of them for so long. Now, he wanted to destroy her conscience with one strike and turn her into a fool for the rest of her life. This way, he would complete the mission assigned by the higher-ups, completely destroy Arbor. Old Monkey was slightly excited at the thought of the bountiful reward. "Be careful, Old Monkey," his partner reminded. He kept feeling that the girl in front of him was rather strange. They had so many spiritual realm experts chasing a level 9 mystic realm girl, but they actually spent so much fucking effort and couldn't do anything to her after so long. It could be seen that this person was extremely strange. Old Monkey kicked the big black dog under it. Unfortunately, that black dog had already been firmly suppressed by the phoenix egg's might and didn't dare to move recklessly. It lowered its head and hugged itself. Old Monkey got angry when he saw this. He kicked the big black dog's stomach and snorted, "Useless thing." Subsequently, he simply gave up on that black dog and leaped towards Xiao Mu himself. He just didn't believe that this damned girl would be able to block the full force of his spiritual sense attack. Old Monkey concluded that his spiritual sense attack was ineffective against Arbor because it was just a probing attack and didn't go all out. Just like now, as long as he used all his strength, he would definitely be able to take down that damned girl. Viciousness shot out of Old Monkey's eyes, and he launched a spiritual conscious attack at Xiao Mu's conscious without warning. This time, Xiao Mu had made preparations beforehand. At the same time that she activated her defensive barrier, she had also condensed a spiritual conscious in her conscious. They were just waiting for that guy to walk right into their trap. The moment Old Monkey's spiritual sense rushed in, it was intercepted by the golden talisman jade tome without any surprise. Arbor took advantage of the situation and directly launched a spiritual sense attack. It ruthlessly tore apart and penetrated Old Monkey's spiritual sense, and all of it was sent flying back. Chapter 13-16. This wave of counterattack came swiftly and ruthlessly, directly charging back into the depths of Old Monkey's conscious. Old Monkey had no time to defend against this spiritual sense attack at all. It was as if a sharp blade had pierced into the depths of his consciousness, tearing a wide crack in it. Old Monkey only had time to let out a blood-curdling scream before his eyes rolled back. He then fell backward and crashed heavily onto the ground. This spiritual sense attack was clearly more ferocious than the previous probing attack. Arbor also slowly grasped the crux of spiritual sense attacks from this. This vulgar man called Old Monkey would probably discover that he had completely turned into an idiot when he woke up. A small shrimp with level 2 spiritual sense dared to attack her, humph. She had level 3 spiritual sense. Crushing a small level 2 was too easy. Old Monkey suddenly fell to the ground and fainted, frightening the others. They simply didn't dare to believe that Old Monkey actually fell just like that. Their gazes toward Arbor also carried a trace of bewilderment. Truly strange. Old Monkey's mental strength could be considered top-notch among them. An expert with level 2 spiritual sense was actually knocked down by a small level 9 mystic cultivator's mental attack. Who would believe this if they told others? Old Monkey's partner immediately bellowed in his daze, "Everyone, pay attention. This lass isn't some level 9 mystic cultivator at all." This bunch of slow-witted fellows finally realized that something was amiss. A small level 9 mystic cultivator could knock down a proper spiritual cultivator with her spiritual sense. How was this possible? It was very obvious that the other party was relying on some kind of spiritual item or treasure to conceal her strength in front of them. A bunch of trash. I sent so many of you, but you can't even deal with a little lass. A sinister voice carrying an endless chill assaulted them. Arbor's pupils contracted slightly, and she abruptly turned her head. Her entire body burst forth with faint water spiritual energy, and a water spiritual barrier instantly enveloped her entire body. Following that sinister voice, water power surged toward her like a monstrous wave. Bang! The little guy slid in his water spirit barrier, and his little hands and feet rolled in the water spirit barrier. Then, he was sent flying by the force of the incoming person. Old Monkey's companions, who had suffered a setback earlier, saw their boss send that damned girl flying as soon as he made a move. Their morale was immediately boosted. They waved their arms and shouted, "Brother 2 is mighty! Brother 2 is mighty!" Boom! Xiao Mu was struck headfirst by that sky-toppling wave, and she was buried in a shallow pit with the water spiritual barrier over her head. Damn it! This person actually sent her flying. Was there any justice in this world? Although she wasn't injured, she had been sent flying. She had been sent flying. A level 6 spiritual water guy was actually able to control such a huge amount of water mist. As for her, she only had 5 thin streams of water. She had completely lost her face. This was the difference between them. Putting aside the fact that holy water could crush all spiritual water below level 9 spiritual water, it was very obvious that the other party's thigh was thicker than hers. Even if the level of the spiritual water he used was worlds apart from hers, it was too bad that the other party was stronger in actual combat. Arbor adjusted her state of mind and immediately flipped out of the pit. She looked at that person with a stoic face. The person called Brother 2 was an old man in his 60s. Half of his face was dark as he coldly glanced over. Chapter 13-17. From the looks of it, he was holding his head high and looking down on everything with disdain. It was truly impressive. Again. Arbor moved its little arms and legs inside the water spirit barrier and charged toward Brother 2 with a whoosh. How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? With one hand behind his back, Brother 2 fiercely struck out a palm at Arbor. A monstrous wave surged out from the center of his palm. It was truly an extremely powerful water spirit energy. Bang! The little fellow was once again hit by this huge wave. It somersaulted inside the water spirit barrier and was once again sent flying. It fell headfirst into another shallow pit. Our dear Xiao Mu's legs swayed. With a push of her hands, she immediately turned around and charged toward Brother 2 again. Hey, can I ask? Bang! How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? Hey, can I? Bang, bang, how can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? Hey, can I? Bang! Huff, huff, huff. Brother 2 bent over and panted heavily. When eldest Chin and the others finally found Arbor, they saw this strange scene. There was a semicircle on the field. The little fellow was clearly fighting against a dozen people, but the situation was somewhat strange. Those dozen people looked as if they had eaten feces. Their faces were the yellow color of feces. As for the old man standing in the middle of the semicircle, his face was as white as a sheet of paper, and he was panting heavily through his nostrils. Fuck, when you struck out with the same palm 13 times in a row and said the same sentence, light of a grain of rice, and the little person you regarded as an ant was still alive and kicking inside the water spirit barrier, you suddenly felt that life was hopeless. When this brother too looked up and saw Arbor bouncing toward him while encased in the water spirit barrier, he couldn't help but raise his palm out of conditioned reflex. This slap actually didn't produce any spiritual energy. Fuck, his spiritual energy was exhausted. He had already drunk 2 bottles of spirit-returning liquid. This kind of spirit-returning liquid was sold at an extremely high price in the 6 prefectures. After drinking 2 bottles in a row, he touched his pocket and found that there was nothing left. Hey, let me finish what I want to say. Arbor finally found a chance to speak. Was there something wrong with this guy? He had tried to say a few words to him several times, but in the end, he was sent flying as soon as he tried. She squatted inside the water spirit barrier, and raised one of her small white hands in a slightly distressed manner, allowing 5 streams of water to drill between her fingers like thin snakes. Hey, big bro, let me ask you something. As soon as Arbor opened his mouth, Eldest Chin's group couldn't help but twitch their mouths. How did you cultivate your water spiritual energy to such a large extent? Tell me, why is my water spirit so small? She asked in distress. If Dian Dian was awake, she could rely on Dian Dian to support her and use a big move like water curtain shrouding the heavens, but it could only be used once. She couldn't even create a decent water ball by herself. Controlling the earth spirit and wood spirit was slightly better. At least when the earth spirit was flipped over, it could form a shallow layer of soil. The wood spirit, on the other hand, was more adept at controlling it. The use of the vine whip had basically reached the point of perfection. Could it be that she had disliked little water before, so her control wasn't very good now? Arbor muttered in his heart and thought suspiciously. Brother too, that I don't want to discuss the water spirit with you. On the side, Eldest Chin couldn't help but burst out laughing after holding back for a while. Chapter 13:18. Arbor blinked at the dark-faced big brother through the water spirit barrier. Why is it so small? She seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be in a hurry to find the big brother to clear her doubts. She couldn't help but shake her little hand. The water shuttled back and forth around her fingers, but it didn't fall to the ground. Such fine control of the water spirit. She still not satisfied. It looked like Brother Two was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. Eldest Chin couldn't help but laugh out loud first. Jojo, you haven't stepped into the spirit realm yet. He couldn't help but want to remind this strange little fellow. Strictly speaking, you're not a spirit master. The water spirit energy you're using is all due to good fortune. When Arbor heard this, she immediately wilted. Oh, she forgot about this. Brother Two already had thoughts of retreating. He felt that the current situation was very unfavorable for them. He gave a look to the person beside him, and the group was about to retreat. Arbor suddenly rushed up and threw a punch of mystic energy at Brother Two's head. Brother Two narrowed his eyes and crossed his fists in front of him to block. The mystic energy collision caused his entire body to sway slightly, but he didn't move at all. Of course, with his level 4 spirit master cultivation, he didn't fear the little fellow's mystic energy at all. How can an ant move a big tree? Brother Two sneered. Consider yourself lucky today. I'll let you off. Bang! He crossed his fists again, blocking the little fellow's fists flying at him at a rapid speed. How can an ant move a big tree? Bang! How can an ant move a big tree? Brother 2 staggered back 3 steps, his face flushed red. Fuck, are you done yet? Everyone, dot. Why did they feel this was inexplicably funny? After Arbor's 3 punches forced Brother 2 back several steps, she took a deep breath and unceasingly transferred the mystic energy in her branch meridians. She once again threw punch after punch at Brother Tuesday. Every punch was wrapped in level 14 mystic energy. Bang, 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 she threw them at Brother Tuesday. You hit me 13 times before, so I must return 26 punches to you. Courtesy demands reciprocity. Dong 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 dong. A gust of wind from the fists was like a shadow, exploding like thunder and lightning. Everyone could only see the fists falling down like raindrops. At first, they could still see the little person twisting and turning inside the water barrier, jumping up and down. Following the heavy fist shadows, strong winds blew, and everyone was horrified to find that they couldn't even catch the trajectory of her movement. This guy seemed to be dancing a funny dance, but in fact, he was constantly punching and stepping, dodging and punching again. His speed was so fast that it made everyone present speechless. After a flurry of punches, no one could even tell if she had actually landed 26 punches or not. She swayed and took a few steps back. She made a gesture of gathering her chi in her dantian and pressing her hand down. She puffed up her cheeks and exhaled. Suddenly, she raised her chin and scolded, "How can the light of a firefly compete with the splendor of the sun and moon?" Everyone was speechless. Pooh! It was unknown who suddenly burst out laughing, but this laughter uncontrollably spread to the entire 100-man team. Why do I find this kid so funny that when they took a closer look, they couldn't help but be a little shocked while amused. That unlucky Brother 2 was actually beaten into a pit by the little fellow's 26 punches. He laid there stiffly and couldn't move for a long time. Chapter 13:19. Even Brother 2 himself couldn't understand. He was clearly such a strong level 4 spiritual master, so how could he be beaten into a pit by a mystic cultivator girl? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem possible. Unless this girl had consumed some spirit medicine beforehand. When normal people used 100% mystic energy to punch a few times, they would feel that their mystic energy was greatly depleted. Conservatively speaking, shouldn't they use it sparingly? But this girl. She punched 26 consecutive times that it didn't seem like it was just that. Brother 2 himself didn't even count how many times this girl had punched him. Every punch used 100% of his profound energy. Just where did this demon come from? Wouldn't Mystic Realm be depleted after using up so much mystic energy? Who would dare to expend their Mystic Realm like this? Weren't they afraid that their Mystic Realm would crack and their mystic meridians would be damaged, which would affect their future cultivation? He could now understand Old Monkey's feelings back then. It wasn't that Old Monkey didn't want to kill this girl, right? It was just that he didn't have the strength, just like how he was right now. He released his spirit beast, Fire Spirit Sparrow. The moment it appeared, it was restrained by the mysterious holy beast pressure on the girl's body. Right now, it only dared to crouch in a corner and tremble. How could it have any thoughts of fighting? This girl exuded a strange aura from head to toe, and she looked very evil. None of Old Monkey's companions could laugh at this time. They stared blankly as the girl lifted Brother 2 out of the pit and tightly clasped his neck with her fingers. "Let me ask you something." Cough. Brother 2 only felt that his throat was very dry, and his arms drooped weakly. He felt that his arms were already crippled from continuously blocking the girl's punches just now. "Where is Fanchoha?" The girl's voice sounded crisp, but even so, it still gave people an inexplicable chill. "Where is Fanchoha?" She forced these words out from between her teeth. Every word made people feel a bone-piercing chill from the depths of their bones. Fanchoha. Cough, cough, cough. Brother Took shook his head, but in the next second, he felt a sharp pain from one of his arms. The girl twisted his left arm without a trace of pity in her eyes. She continued to ask icily, "Where did you hide Fanchoha?" I really didn't hide him. He is Fan. Ugh. Before Brother Took could finish his sentence, an arrow shot from the sky and pierced his back. His eyes were wide open, and his face was filled with disbelief. Just like that, he fell face first into the deep pit. Xiao Mu felt her hair stand on end, and she abruptly turned her head away. Eldest Qin's terrified cry of, "Jojo, be careful," reached his ears. Arbor instantly felt his body lighten. His small body that was wrapped in a water spiritual barrier was instantly clamped by a pair of claws. With a whoosh, he was sent flying into the sky. At the same time, Mo Lien and Duanyu, who had sensed the auras of Arbor and the others, swiftly moved over. When he saw the scene in front of him, his expression changed and he shouted, "Jojo." The two people chased after her in bewilderment. They didn't even have time to greet Situi and the rest before their figures swiftly flitted through the crowd one after the other, chasing after Xiao Mu in the direction that she had disappeared in. Xiao Mu's shoulder was grabbed by a black double-headed crow, and it flew higher and higher while carrying her. A pair of calves swayed back and forth inside the water spiritual barrier. Arbor's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes were solemn. There's still 3 more chapters. You don't have to wait for me, it's almost midnight. Chapter 13:20. Flying at high altitudes didn't intimidate her at all. In any case, she had the protection of the water spirit barrier. No matter how high she flew, the astral winds couldn't rip her apart. At this moment, she could clearly see that a middle-aged woman with a black veil was sitting on the back of the two-headed crow. Fan Choha was sitting on the woman's back, grinning at her. Arbor felt a slight stinging pain in her eyes, as though blood was seeping out. She seemed to have vaguely seen this middle-aged woman in her dreams. However, she couldn't remember who she was. That black veil of the same style and color was enough to prove that she was the woman who had appeared in the abandoned hut in the Mystic Beast Forest. It was this malicious middle-aged woman who had killed the poison-tailed butterfly she had sent to follow Fan Choha. How annoying! Arbor's icy gaze swept over the woman and Fan Choha behind her. She curled her lips at Fan Choha, revealing a spurious sneer. It didn't look like a smile. Fan Choha was alarmed. For some reason, he felt that the young lady in front of him didn't have this kind of facial paralysis when she smiled from the bottom of her heart. Whoosh, whoosh. The two-headed crow let out a hoarse cry and flapped its wings, pulling Arbor along as it flew straight out of the city lord's manor. They flew all the way to a remote area of Jiaozhong base before dropping her down. In front of them was a dilapidated temple entrance. 2 or 3 corpses lay haphazardly on the ground, their faces unrecognizable. When Arbor landed beside them, these suddenly moved. These corpses suddenly moved, and they abruptly raised their rotting hands to grab Xiao Mu. Arbor dodged with a sway and didn't even look at them, even though these corpses were standing up shakily from the ground and gathering toward her as though they had smelled raw meat. Kiki. The middle-aged woman let out a distorted laugh. It didn't seem like her real voice, but rather like a voice that had been altered with drugs. "Young lady, you're so brave," the middle-aged woman said with a smile. "You're not the least bit frightened when facing me alone. As expected, you're quite something." Arbor shut herself in the water spirit barrier and let the corpse hags pounce on her and scratch her through the water spirit barrier. It was extremely funny. It was like looking at a piece of fat meat in front of his eyes. He could almost eat it with his mouth open, but in reality, he couldn't touch it at all. He could only stare anxiously. Arbor glanced at her. You think you can torture me to death with these things? After the series of battles just now, only a fool would not understand how strong she was. If this woman had mindlessly brought her here just to lock her up with the zombies, then she would look down on her. Because these little toys couldn't kill her at all. I admit that you are very strong. The middle-aged woman narrowed her eyes and looked at her with a smile. But this is far from enough. This world is far more vast than what you see. There are some people in this world you can't afford to offend. Like you. Arbor mocked. The middle-aged woman wasn't angered by her. Instead, she nodded. Like me. Suddenly, a spiraling fire dragon appeared behind her. Its flying claws rose up, and the dragon's roar reverberated. She thought she would see Arbor's face reveal a look of horror. However, how could Arbor, who had seen the physical golden dragon true body, be intimidated by a mere virtual fire dragon? Chapter 13:21. She only swiftly covered her body with layer after layer of water spirit shields. When 4 layers of water spirit shields covered her body, a layer of agitation appeared in Fan Choha's eyes. Her body is very strange. Capture her alive. Still want to capture me for research? The corner of Arbor's mouth cracked into a sinister smile. In the blink of an eye, he moved ahead of the others. She ferociously punched out with her level 14 mystic energy, and conveniently swiped out that feral. A line of fire followed. But in reality, she was only stalling for time. The current situation was rather dangerous. The woman in front of her should be a great spiritual master. Compared to that level 4 spiritual master brother too, her aura was more than just a little bit stronger. The middle-aged woman was very strong. However, she would never admit that she was weak. The world was so big that it was hard for us to imagine it. But any path in the world was man-made, one step at a time. Because the entire world was under our feet. Arbor's punch was instantly devoured by the fire dragon. Fan Choha's eyes were wide open, and he had a trace of an excited smile. He thought that he could see Arbor being captured by the middle-aged woman in one move. But the truth proved that this was only his imagination. Fan Choha's expression stiffened, and he coldly watched Arbor's 4 layers of water spirit shields block the fire dragon. The fire dragon broke through Arbor's first layer of water spirit shield, the second layer. When it reached the 3rd layer, it was already somewhat powerless. After 2 punches, it softly turned into a puff of red ash, disappearing in front of everyone. Arbor's mystic energy had actually been greatly depleted from the continuous battles. Especially when she had continuously punched that brother 236 times in order to intimidate Old Monkey's group of people. Cough cough, that's right. Although she had shouted 26 punches, she had actually hit him 36 times. So even when she was suspended in midair, she had been recovering the mystic energy in her body. Although she had not completely recovered, she had 3 more branch meridians than others, so she could cope for a while. She covered herself with 2 more water spirit shields. Inside the 4 layers of water spirit shields, she looked coldly at Fan Choha and the middle-aged woman through the mist. Do you think 4 layers of water spirit barrier can save your life? You're too naive. Before the middle-aged woman finished speaking, Arbor rotated the defensive thunder barrier between his fingers, and a translucent barrier closed over the middle-aged woman's head. Be careful. The middle-aged woman hastily pulled Fan Choha over in a flash, only to see the defensive thunder cover 4 to 5 corpse puppets in an instant. Within a few minutes, they were cut to pieces with lightning. Spiritual weapon. A trace of astonishment flashed through the middle-aged woman's eyes, but it only lasted for a second. An even thicker fire dragon appeared behind him, and a feathered fan appeared in his hand. With each flap, the thick fire dragon behind the woman seemed to have grown a little bigger. This should be a spirit artifact that boosts profound skills. Arbor's eyes flashed. He grabbed a vine as thick as a finger and held it tightly in his hand. This woman was going to use her ultimate move. The middle-aged woman let out an angry roar. She raised her hands, and that fire dragon actually split into two. With an unstoppable momentum, it charged in Arbor's direction. Arbor's pupils contracted. He wanted to dodge, but he found that his body was locked onto by the woman's spiritual sense, and he couldn't move at all. Chapter 13:22. This woman's spiritual sense should be about the same as hers, or maybe even half a level stronger than hers. This was the advantage of having a strong spiritual sense. It could lock onto the target immediately and prevent them from moving an inch. Of course, this required a lot of spiritual sense and full concentration. In a battle, it also required a lot of spiritual sense to lock onto the target continuously. Just like now, Arbor wanted to move, but the middle-aged woman locked onto her and didn't let her move. Then, in the time it took to take a breath, two fire dragons rushed in front of her side by side. They crashed into her water spirit barrier with a loud bang. She was hit by a wave of air and fell backwards on the ground. She could clearly feel the water spirit barrier resisting the two fire dragons, making scraping sounds. Chi-chi, the first water spirit shield cracked from the middle and collapsed in an instant. Then, the second, the third. The fourth. Xiao Mu used her spiritual conscious to barely undo the middle-aged woman's spiritual conscious lock and dodged to the side. Although she swiftly conjured up a water spiritual barrier, the left side of her waist was still struck by one of the fire dragon's tails before she could do so. A huge force instantly sent her flying. The black double-headed crow was like a king looking down on all living things. It suddenly opened its mouth and let out a mute sound wave attack. When Arbor came into contact with this sound wave at close range, her water spirit barrier immediately shattered with a bang. A trace of blood fell from the corner of her mouth. Arbor didn't have time to wipe it off. She threw a wood spirit barrier at her and dodged to the side. After two attacks, she actually didn't kill this stinky girl on the spot. A trace of anger and dissatisfaction flitted through the middle-aged woman's eyes. She immediately swung her sleeves and launched the third fire spirit barrier attack. This damned girl set up 4 layers of water spirit barrier each time. Could it be that she didn't use up any spiritual energy? Mystic Guiding Talisman Array. Arbor shouted angrily. Don't let her use the talisman. Fan Choha's eyelids twitched. The moment Arbor set up the Mystic Guiding Talisman Array, she took out a bunch of talismans without even looking. She opened them all in one breath and threw them in the direction of the middle-aged woman. Blue attack talismans. There were a total of 30 to 40 blue offensive talismans, and each talisman had 70% of the owner's profound strength. Although it was not enough to injure the woman, it was enough to block her and buy him some time to catch his breath. There were zombies everywhere within a radius of dozens of miles. If he used the unreliable teleportation talisman, he would not know which corner he would teleport to. Arbor gritted his teeth and was about to use a teleportation talisman to teleport away. Suddenly, he saw the middle-aged woman shout angrily and emerge from the dozens of talismans, glaring at him with a red face. With a flick of her finger, 2 objects the size of glass beads appeared in her hand. Arbor's eyelids twitched. Could it be that this was a level higher than the profound energy bead? Spiritual energy bead. They were condensed by spirit masters when they were idle and used their spirit chi to deal with unexpected situations. These 2 spiritual energy beads contained an enormous amount of power. Even Arbor didn't dare to brace himself. What kind of joke was this? Although her spiritual sense was high, her cultivation had yet to break through to the spirit realm. Her physical body was even more pitifully weak. She vomited blood after being hit twice. Dodge! With a thought, she forcefully shook off the woman's spiritual sense lock and flew forward. She only heard the sound of wind whistling past her ears as the two spiritual energy beads attacked her from behind. Master! A voice like the sound of nature suddenly rang in her ears. Cho-cho! Arbor was about to cry, fragmented sleep. Chapter 13:23. In such a dangerous situation, Cho-cho's voice was truly like the sound of nature, causing Arbor to be moved to the point of crying. Quick, Cho-cho! Can you fuse the heart of the forest secret realm in my inner world and the frigid pool inside it into Paradise Planet first? I'll need it later. In the blink of an eye, the two spiritual power pearls approached Arbor one after the other. Countless green vines and branches wrapped around Arbor, wrapping her into a cocoon in an instant. The two spiritual power pearls exploded beside her with two booms. The enormous energy waves flattened all the soil in this small area. A taut buzzing sound reverberated in the air for a long time. Arbor rolled on the ground, wrapped in a large circle of vines. She hastily flipped backward, got up, and ran. Little master, I'll drag you into Paradise Planet to hide first. Cho-cho said anxiously. No. I won't retreat. A faint determination flitted across Arbor's eyes. If she retreated into Paradise Planet like a tortoise whenever she encountered trouble, then she could forget about making any major breakthroughs or making any significant progress in this lifetime. Moreover, she didn't want to expose such an important thing like Paradise Planet to her two enemies at all. Why should she retreat? She wasn't at the end of her rope yet. And even if she was at the end of her rope, it didn't mean she had no way out. She couldn't develop the habit of retreating whenever she encountered danger. She had to bravely advance. With a taut little stoic face, Arbor said again, Quick, Cho-cho, listen to me. Take out the thing in the heart of the forest secret realm and fuse it with Paradise Planet first. Yes. Cho-cho understood his little master too well. She was a strong-willed person to begin with. Under these circumstances, it was impossible for her to retreat. Since that was the case, he had to do everything possible to assist her. His master must have her reasons for doing this. Indeed, cultivators like them couldn't develop a habit of retreating whenever they encountered danger. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to achieve great things in the future. It hurts a bit, master. Although he wasn't fusing the entire heart of the forest secret realm into his master's dantian, Paradise Planet was going to change. However, now that Paradise Planet was going to be modified, it would naturally affect its master. Sure. Arbor carried a large ball of green vine shield on her back, and as she flew forward, the profound guiding talisman array was also endlessly absorbing the profound energy between heaven and earth, slowly replenishing her profound domain. When Cho-cho fused the frigid pond in the heart of the forest secret realm into Paradise Planet, Arbor felt his dantian prickling. However, this pain was much lighter than the pain he felt when the Paradise Planet merged with his flesh and blood. She just had to grit her teeth and get through it. 18 defensive talismans were flung around her body, blocking the green vines outside the protection, which would be able to withstand the middle-aged woman's attack first. The middle-aged woman's face under the black veil had already become extremely grave and ugly. She couldn't believe that she still hadn't won over the young lady in front of her after such a long time. Fan Chioha was also anxious. He followed the middle-aged woman to besiege Arbor. However, it would have been better if he hadn't made a move. Once he made a move, he was simply adding to the chaos and holding them back. When Arbor saw this big brother, she threw all the blue attack talismans at him. Fan Chioha wasn't the middle-aged woman, this great spiritualist. If he received so many blue attack talismans, he would definitely die. Be careful. The middle-aged woman pulled him aside. Chapter 13:24. A vicious glint flitted across her face under the black veil, and she berated, "Little vicious woman, you're really vicious." Arbor couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with her. This middle-aged woman was very powerful and didn't seem to have any emotional fluctuations during the fight. This kind of person was much harder to deal with than those who showed their emotions on the surface. This middle-aged woman could be considered a character, but unfortunately, she was destined to be buried with Fan Choha today. Arbor's eyes narrowed coldly, and she suddenly fished out the heart of the forest mystic realm that little tree had finished fusing. In this forest mystic realm, other than the frigid pool, only Senior Xuanji's hut needed to be fused. The other messy stones and mud were of no use. At this moment, other than the mystic energy that filled the heart of the mystic realm, there was basically nothing left. Arbor lifted her eyelids and glanced in the direction of the middle-aged woman. Instead of retreating, she stepped on the ground and sprinted toward the two people. The woman's eyes under the black veil moved quietly, and her brows knitted involuntarily. A terrifying sense of crisis suddenly surfaced in her heart. Not good. This wretched girl probably had some special method to deal with them. The middle-aged woman grabbed Fan Choha's arm and gazed at Qiao Mu. She saw Qiao Mu abruptly toss a round object in her hand at them, and it exploded in an instant. Arbor's body suddenly floated into the air. The middle-aged woman's eyes were instantly filled with the light of exploding mystic energy. The mystic light that filled the sky and covered the earth made the two of them seem to be at the center of the explosion. Ah! The middle-aged woman let out a tragic roar. Before the violent mystic energy fluctuations completely cut her and Fan Choha apart, she threw out a jade talisman array made up of 24 jade talismans. In an instant, the two people's figures quickly retreated from the center of the mystic energy explosion. Arbor, who was suspended in midair and looking down coldly at the rolling rubble and cracked soil, curled her lips into a cold smile. Transportation Talisman Array. It was a transportation talisman array. This woman actually had a transportation talisman array made up of 24 jade talismans. This kind of teleportation glyph array was very difficult to draw, not to mention that it was drawn by a jade talisman. It was not sold on the market at all. In this way, he was completely sure that this woman was definitely related to the Divine Prefecture's Mu clan. Was she from the Mu family of the Divine Land? Could it be that 7th Master Mu was the one who attacked her? Was it her rejection that made him angry out of humiliation? For people like them who lived high and mighty in the upper 3 continents, being rejected by a small shrimp from a small lower star region was an extremely embarrassing thing. Since he couldn't obtain the young genius of the clan, he might as well destroy him. Was that what he meant? Arbor's eyes instantly became extremely cold, revealing a sky full of flames and monstrous hatred. Why should she be killed by someone else? His fists were already clenched tightly. Even with such an excellent opportunity, he still couldn't kill Fan Choha. She hated it. After landing on the ground with a whoosh, Qiao Mu only saw a broken leg lying on the ground. This was a man's leg. From the top of the knee to the sole of the foot, along with that black boot, it had all been cut open by profound energy. Fan Choha lost a leg. But for Arbor, this was really too small a price to pay. She actually let him escape. Arbor's cold little face contained a trace of harshness. Chapter 13:25. Qiao Mu stood there with a cold face, and sand billowed everywhere as they tumbled down. Smoke and dust filled the air. The entire city lord's manor couldn't withstand the power of the heart of the secret realm's explosion. It slowly turned to sand and gradually turned to ash. At this moment, a metal chain suddenly emerged from the corner of the wall and flung towards Arbor's arm. Croak! A large-mouthed toad emerged from the base of the wall and spat a mouthful of venom at Arbor. Arbor glanced at it coldly and sprinkled a cloud of powder with her hand, evaporating the venom with a hiss. She wrapped herself in a wood spirit shield and grabbed at the corner of the wall. Her small hand covered in a Vidra talisman stabbed into someone's shoulder, eliciting a pained howl. Bang! A young man was dragged out from behind the wall by Arbor and landed directly at Arbor's feet. He was firmly bound by a green vine that she flung out, and he let out another cry of pain. This was the young man who had escaped with the woman from Oni Manor. Arbor glanced around and saw Guan Ying in the corner of the wall, frantically abandoning her companions and fleeing for her life. That large-mouthed toad should be Guan Ying's mystic beast. When it saw its master flee, it turned into a streak of light and disappeared into the mystic beast's space. What a pitiful worm, Arbor said coldly. Your teammates abandoned you. Don't kill me, don't kill me. The young man's eyes were filled with terror, and a strong hatred for Guan Ying emerged from the bottom of his heart. His original intention was that this little girl wasn't to be trifled with. Since Reverend Zhao was dead, they should hurry and find a chance to escape. Who knew that Guan Ying coveted the little girl's secrets and was still unwilling to let go of the heart of Xuanji? She insisted on dragging him over to take a look. Just take a look, but she suddenly attacked the girl. She couldn't beat the others and implicated him. She even fled on her own. No matter how he looked at it, he felt wronged. That brat from the Fan family said that you have the heart of Xuanji. Guan Ying. She wants it. No, it's not my fault, it's Guan Ying. Ani Prefecture's 4th Miss, Guan Ying, she wants the Xuanji core. She wants to kill you. Ah. The young man only felt waves of pain assaulting the depths of his consciousness. An extremely terrifying feeling of being peeled off came from within. Something extremely important was being extracted from his body. It was extremely terrifying. Ah! The young man cried out as he watched the gate to his inner world being forcibly torn open by someone's spiritual sense. No, it was impossible. In this world, how could there be someone who could take away another person's inner world? With a series of crackling noises, the young man was perplexed to find that the things that originally existed in his inner world were all being emptied out. Ah! His inner world. Those who covet other people's things will eventually taste their own medicine. Arbor stepped on his back. Speak, what's the relationship between an E-prefecture and that middle-aged woman? Are they the same? The young man had already fainted from the pain. Now that she stepped on his spine, his entire body trembled, and he became a bit more awake. Knowing that he would meet his end here today no matter what, the young man steeled his heart and simply said, "You, just kill me, kill me. I only ask for a quick death." Humph! Arbor snorted coldly. "Answer me honestly. I'll give you a quick death." "No, I don't know her." The young man groaned. Chapter 13:26. The young man spat out a large amount of blood as he shook his head. "No, I don't know them. We didn't come together." Sure enough, the two groups weren't on the same side. Consecrated Zhao and Guan Ying from Ani Prefecture must have gotten the information from the Fan clan and guessed that the Xuanji core was in her possession. They came here to obtain the Xuanji core from her, but they didn't expect to lose 2 of their people here. Only Guan Ying managed to escape. As for Old Monkey and Brother Two's group that the middle-aged woman brought along, they were very likely from the Mu clan of the Divine Province. Their goal was to eliminate her, the little genius. Mu Laochi did it. A venomous glint flitted through Arbor's eyes. No matter who did it, she absolutely wouldn't let this matter rest. They chased after her the entire way for fun, and they still wanted her to admit defeat. In his dreams of 1,000 autumns. As for Fan Choha, the two of them were probably related since that middle-aged woman was so protective of him. At first, Fan Choha only wanted to borrow the Ani Prefecture trio's strength to kill her at Jiaozhong base. Later, he discovered that the Ani Prefecture trio was useless, so he notified that middle-aged woman. As Arbor thought this, she raised her hand to pound her aching head. She couldn't recall where she had seen this middle-aged woman before. Could it be that she really saw this middle-aged woman in her previous life? Was it in Fan Choha's sealed laboratory? Jojo! An anxious shout interrupted her thoughts. Arbor blinked and turned to look. She saw Mo Lien leaping toward her, followed by Duanyu, eldest Qin, and 100 others. They were escorting a group of wilted old monkey companions. It seemed like Mo Lien and the others had taken action and captured these little spiritual cultivators. Arbor's eyes flashed, and she immediately flitted toward Mo Lien, landing in the man's arms. Jojo, are you alright? What was that vibration just now? We heard it from far away. Let me see. Are you injured? Don't worry. As long as I'm here, nothing will happen to Master. A slender little treant lay on Arbor's shoulder and shook its head at Mo Lien. Only then did Mo Lien see the tiny treant. She heaved a sigh of relief and said, "The tiny treant is out." Yes. Arbor nodded. If it wasn't for Sapling's help, I'm afraid I would have suffered a great loss this time. It's nothing serious. It's just that my body is too weak. Arbor frowned. It seemed that he had to try to temper his body after returning to the capital. Mo Lien reached out to hold her, but she raised her hand to check her pulse instead. Why is your breath a little irregular? Ah, it's nothing. It's the heavenly law. Some people have angered the heavenly law, so it's good enough that they can break free, Duanyu teased as he also walked over. Arbor cast a sidelong glance at Mo Lien. What kind of incredible power did you use? Mo Lien threw Duanyu a cold glance before turning to say to Arbor, "It's fine now. Don't worry, I'll take care of your injuries right now." Duanyu quickly walked up and sized up Arbor. Jojo, you're injured. You were the one who caused that huge commotion just now. Emichim, Arbor nodded. I detonated the heart of the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. I originally wanted to keep Fan Choha and a middle-aged woman here forever, but who knew that they would escape? The two men couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Jojo actually detonated a mystic domain so generously. No wonder the entire city lord's estate turned into a puff of ash in such a huge quake. Chapter 1327. It's good that you captured these people. I'm going to ask them something. After speaking with the two, Arbor immediately walked towards eldest Qin and the others. Everyone crowded around and asked questions, but Arbor waved her hand to indicate that she was fine before walking to eldest Qin's side. Before eldest Qin could ask, the little fellow ruthlessly kicked a person's head. Her voice was as cold as ice as she asked, "Are you people from the Divine Province's Mu clan?" Cough, cough, cough. That person was Old Monkey's sworn brother, but he was quite stubborn. After Arbor kicked him and punched him twice, he still didn't say a word other than coughing. Is there any way to make them talk? Arbor turned to look at Mo Lien. Her dictum talisman was completely useless against this person whose cultivation was much higher than hers. If they were both in the mystic realm, perhaps she could give it a try. However, this person's cultivation was around the third level of the spiritual realm, much higher than hers. The dictum talisman was ineffective against him, so it was useless even if she used it. As for those repulsive fellows beside him, they were all clamoring for mercy before she could even hit them. They said a lot of fawning and begging words, so they didn't seem like people who understood the truth. Search his soul. It's simple and convenient. Eldest Chin tugged at the corner of his mouth, revealing a cold smile. I'll search him. Duan Yu volunteered, but was stopped by Mo Lien. No need. However, before they could finish arguing, that stubborn man was already trembling all over in fright. He couldn't help but shout, don't search my soul. Arbor looked at them in confusion. She didn't understand what this soul search was. Look at how scared this person was. I'll tell you everything, that person hastily said, spilling everything he knew. We're not from the Divine Province's Mu clan. We're disciples of the 6 Prefectures Continent's Clear Sky faction. That woman is called Fan Gu, our Clear Sky faction's vice-faction master. In the 6 Prefectures Continent, the Clear Sky sect can be considered a small mid-tier power, but we... Liar, Arbor interrupted him coldly. She has a teleportation glyph formation made of 24 jade talismans. Even I wouldn't believe it if he wasn't from a talisman aristocratic family. Would you believe it? Everyone shook their heads. 24 jade talismans or something of a transportation talisman array. Just from the sound of it, one could tell that it was a high-level talisman array. They had never seen such a thing on Seacone Planet before. Yes, it's true, it's true. The man was so anxious that the sweat on his forehead slid down. This lowly one wouldn't dare to say anything false. Vice faction leader. Fan Gu has never talked about her past in front of us. As for those strange talismans on her body, some of us have asked her about them, but she never told us. Miss, this operation was ordered by the vice sect leader. We are just a group of small fries carrying out the mission. Please be magnanimous and let us go. We promise that we will never harass you again. Only the dead will not disturb me. Arbor's cold voice made everyone's heart skip a beat. Hand over all the black spirit jade in your inner worlds. Forget it, take out everything you have in your inner worlds. Arbor tilted her head and nodded at the man on the ground whose inner worlds had been stripped. When I make my move, you will suffer even more. Chapter 1328. Black Spirit Jade. The pupils of the Clear Sky Sex group contracted slightly, practically not daring to believe their ears. What did she want? Black Spirit Jade. Something like profound spirit jade, how could small fries like them possibly have it on them? Black spirit jade could replenish and raise the 5 spirits, and it was a good item for replenishing energy for divine beasts and above. But how could they have something like that? For one thing, their 5 spirits were very low level and couldn't be replenished. For another, they didn't have divine beasts that needed this. Moreover, black spirit jade veins weren't visible everywhere. They were buried deep underground, and even if they used special tools to detect them, they might not be alive to dig them up, alright? This little girl wanted something so high-class the moment she opened her mouth. Where were they going to go? Ah. Among them, a few of the men with unwilling expressions were the first to feel a piercing pain in their consciousness. Their inner worlds instantly overturned, and it was as if it was raining, and things kept falling down with a pitter-patter. When the others saw their pained expressions, their hearts convulsed in fright, and they stared in horror at the stoic-faced little girl in front of them. We will give everything. These people scrambled to be the first to dig out the items, regretting fervently in their hearts that they had followed the vice sect master to find trouble with this girl. Now, not only did they have to give away everything in their inner worlds, they couldn't even keep their lives. They wondered if there was a medicine for regret in this world. Brother Axe and the others were also staring blankly at this young crown prince consort. They really had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. They came to hunt down the crown princess, but not only did they have to hand over everything in their inner worlds, they even had to pay with their lives. After sifting through this pile of trash for half a day, Xiao Mu finally found 2 pieces of black spirit jade and several stalks of black rank medicinal herbs from the Clear Sky faction disciples' inner world. She didn't care for the rest. She pointed at the large pile of things on the ground. "You guys take it and divide it." "Everyone!" exclamation point. A petite female mystic cultivator asked agitatedly, Really, Crown Princess?" "The Crown Princess said that she wanted to give it to you, so just take it." Mo Lian waved her hand and asked them to move the things to the side. Situ Yi and Liang Qingqing didn't go up to share it. They had received the storage talismans from Arbor before, and the things inside were much better than this trash. Naturally, they didn't care for it. There seemed to be a lot of things, but with 100 people dividing them, each person did not get much. However, the process of dividing them was very lively and happy. Everyone felt that this trip was not in vain. "Jojo, how should we deal with these people?" Eldest Qin kicked the unlucky guy who had fallen to the ground after his inner world was taken away. "Kill." Arbor didn't even blink. If it weren't for the fact that her current life was completely different from her previous one and that she had an endless number of trump cards, she wouldn't have been able to use them. Wouldn't he have been surrounded and chased all the way here and killed in this remote base? So, don't be unconvinced. Everything is fate. Who told them to have the intention to kill her? If she didn't kill them, was she going to let the tiger return to the mountain? She had to be vicious and merciless towards her enemies. Eldest Qin nodded and waved his hand, gesturing for several mystic cultivators to come forward and take care of them. "Have you found the storehouse?" "Not yet." Duan Yuk shook his head. "With 2 consecutive huge explosions, I reckon that the nearby zombies will be attracted here." Arbor nodded. "Continue searching." Chapter 1329. She tugged at Mo Lian's hand and pulled him to the side. "I need to adjust my breathing for a bit." "Alright, I'll watch over you here." Seeing her sit down, Mo Lian also found a slightly flatter rock to sit down beside her. The crumbling earth walls around them had already gradually stopped moving. The entire city lord's manor had now been reduced to rubble. Arbor turned her head and said softly to the little tree ant on her shoulder, "Chocho, integrate my other secret inheritance realm into the star domain." "All right." Chocho loved doing this kind of thing the most. In the past, other than the main star, there were 4 other largest planets in Master's star domain. Each of them could completely surpass the vast area of Paradise Planet. But now, nothing could be opened. Fortunately, Master's cultivation had already risen to level 14, so he could do more things in the future. Master, you're already level 14. In the future, you'll be able to throw some small living animals into Paradise Planet yourself." The 2 people didn't have anything to say in front of Mo Lian, so they discussed Paradise Planet's matters in low voices. "Is that so?" Although Arbor's face was stoic, she was extremely happy in her heart. Chocho seemed to have mentioned before that as long as her cultivation rose to level 13, she would be able to take animals into Paradise Planet. Now that she was a genuine level 14 profound realm, she could naturally do it. "Master, you're awesome. During this period of time that Chocho wasn't around, you didn't lag behind your cultivation at all and even soared so much. So amazing." Chocho's string of praises made Xiao Mu blush slightly. If De Yuan hadn't cheated her and forced her to cultivate in seclusion for so long, who knew what realm she would still be lingering in. Although the rapid cultivation talisman was quite a cheat, it was extremely beneficial for the path of cultivation. From this, it seemed that not all talismans were unacceptable in the world. Moreover, some special talismans would only become more and more crooked in the hands of evil people. Arbor closed her eyes and waited for Cho-Cho to integrate Long Chuyun's secret inheritance realm into her Dantian star domain. This process was a little longer than transforming Paradise Planet, but compared to the pain of fusing with Paradise Planet for the first time, it was still bearable. An hour later, Long Chuyun's land of inheritance merged with her star domain. A tiny star that was originally beside Paradise Planet suddenly lit up. Arbor looked inside his Dantian. His eyes were filled with spiritual energy, and he suddenly entered the small star. Long Chuyun's land of inheritance did not change at all. The 3 thatched huts looked somewhat lonely on the vast planet. There was only a small row of trees in front of the door. After the entire secret realm merged with the star field, it had expanded more than 3 times its original size and was filled with dense profound energy. Arbor retracted his gaze and looked at Paradise Planet. When he saw it, he couldn't help but be shocked. The entire Paradise Planet, after being partially transformed by the forest mystic realm, had now become so exquisite and beautiful. The peach forest was fluttering in the wind, and the lake was gurgling. Behind the peach slope was a clear cold pool, and beside the pool was a small house. In front of the door was a pile of rugged rocks. Outside the peach forest, several storehouses had been built to store supplies. Currently, she had 3 granaries, 2 vegetable storehouses, and 1 meat and poultry storehouse. The previous peach storehouse had long been filled. Another one had been rebuilt, and it looked like it was going to be piled up on the wooden beam again. Cho-Cho had built 2 storehouses for medicinal ingredients, and the first storehouse was also almost full. Chapter 1330. The 100 herb garden encompassed 50 mu of medicinal land on Paradise Planet. Cho-Cho had named this herb garden after it. Outside the herb garden was another 100 poison valley, which was filled with poisonous flowers and herbs. Xiao Xiao, the poison-tailed butterfly queen, led a flock of little butterflies to wander about inside. It was quiet behind the peach garden slope. The newly built maple pavilion that Cho-Cho had built for her was standing on the slope. It had even planted the longevity tree and that mutated peach tree over there. The 2 trees were in full bloom, and the slope was quiet and secluded. Arbor's mind stirred, and she tossed a large batch of elementary herbs into Paradise Planet from her storage talisman. She had Cho-Cho build a random elementary herb storehouse and pile it up. With Cho-Cho's control over the wood spirit, it didn't take much effort to build an elementary herb storehouse out of wood. It was done in a few breaths. It also built an empty storehouse for her while it was at it. It said with a chuckle, "Why don't you move all the messy supplies in the 2 carriages in front of the door into this storehouse?" Arbor nodded. She remembered that the supplies in the 2 carriages were things that she had hurriedly asked second uncle to get for her in the beginning. There were all kinds of fruits, meat, vegetables, and seasonings inside. Apart from that, there was also second uncle's wine, some basic medicine, gauze, and so on. In the future, you can use this carriage whenever you want. Remember to find a few more horses to put in. I've already taken a good look at the terrain. I'll build you a farm in front of the magnetite mine. What do you think? Make it a little further away. That's for sure. We can't let these 4-legged beasts ruin the Paradise Planet that we worked so hard to build, Cho-Cho said cheerfully. Cho-Cho chuckled merrily. I'll enclose them and make a large farm so that they won't wander around. If by any chance some blind cow or pig jumped out and trampled on their 100 herb garden, then Cho-Cho would die of heartache. Arbor was in a good mood. She had a goal in the future, and she had to find more animals that hadn't mutated to take in. That way, she wouldn't have to worry about cutting off the supply of meat and poultry for a long time. Now, her Paradise Planet was truly thriving, and she had everything she needed. To put it bluntly, Even if the entire Seekong planet were to explode and be destroyed, she could hide in Paradise Planet with her friends and family and live out the rest of her life peacefully. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. She didn't want that to happen. She still hoped that the lives of the people outside would get better day by day. Before the next night, Cowbird made a move. Eliminating it as the source would probably bring a ray of light to this gloomy world. Withdrawing her inner sight, she turned her gaze to Mo Lien, who was staring at her. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Lien, when we're done here, let's go to Paradise Planet and take a look. It's so beautiful now. All right. Cho-Cho, did second uncle finish planting all the seeds that he collected earlier? Xiao Mu turned her head to look at the little tree ant that was clambering up her shoulder. Yes. Look, now the medicinal field has expanded to 50 mu, compared to 30 mu before. I planted everything I could. Isn't it great? It's really great. Arbor wasn't stingy with her praise. Cho-Cho knows the habits of plants like the back of his hand. He's really helped me a lot. Master, Master, as long as you're happy. Cho-Cho shouted while dancing with joy. Besides, I don't have to waste any effort. I can just summon more Trey Ant clones. Arbor raised her hand and stroked the 5 tender leaves on his head. Chapter 1331. And it's not just those seeds that second uncle gave me. There's also the seeds that City Lord Luge of Shuang City gave me last time. They've basically all been planted. The little tree ant swayed its leaves and called out softly, Master, Master, what else do you want Cho-Cho to plant? Arbor couldn't help but laugh. He wanted to say that there wasn't anything else to plant, but his mind suddenly moved. He raised his finger, and a seed appeared on his fingertip. He handed it to the Trent's branch. What seed is this? It looks like a spirit tea seed. When Mo Lien heard that, her eyelids suddenly twitched. She coughed lightly and said, Is it that seed that you picked up from the House of Treasures last time? And, it's that time when I picked up 5 million. Little sister gave it to me. Arbor nodded. Mo Lien, she suddenly wanted to laugh. This little guy was too funny. A random seed that he picked up was actually a spirit tea seed. What's a spirit tea seed? Is it useful? It's useful, it's useful. The little Treant Cho-Cho nodded furiously and said, Once this spirit tea tree is planted, you'll have spirit tea to drink when you enter the spirit realm in the future. Not only will it help you cultivate in the spirit realm, but most importantly, it can subtly improve the entire mystic domain. In other words, Master, if you plant this spirit tea tree, when the time comes, the entire Paradise Planet might evolve from the mystic domain to the spirit realm. Don't you think this change is big? No matter how ignorant Arbor was, he knew that the mystic domain only produced mystic energy, while the spirit realm could produce spirit energy. Naturally, they couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Cho-Cho, can you really grow this spirit tea tree? Cho-Cho patted his Trent's head. Of course, don't you know who I am? But if Little Earth wakes up, that'll be even better. With its sacred soil's nourishment, I guarantee that this spirit tea tree will grow into a small tree in 2 or 3 days. Now, he could only plant it first and let the great Cho-Cho speed it up to see if it could grow a seedling first. Bowl. Arbor grabbed one of his Trent's claws. Thank you for your hard work. Cho-Cho looked excited and intoxicated. Wow, Little Master keeps praising Cho-Cho. Cho-Cho is so happy that I'm about to fly. Remember to do a good job. Arbor flicked him. Are Xiao Shui and the others awake? No. Cho-Cho shook its head. As soon as he raised his head, he saw a behemoth-like gorilla following behind Qing Wan. His pair of bean-like eyes immediately became round. Wow, Master, who is this baboon? Master! Qinghuan transformed into a little chick and rushed towards her. Oh, while you were away, I even picked up a giant ape and an egg. Little Tree was speechless. Shock, shock, shock. It had only been a few short months since he last saw his master. Why had there been a few more strange people by his master's side? They were all here to fight for Qiuqiu's favor. Ow, ow, ow. Qiuqiu, don't howl like a wolf. Arbor patted his Trent's head. Bring Qinghuan and the others back to Paradise Planet first. Qiuqiu responded reluctantly and stared at the giant ape. It wants to go in too. Bring it to Senior Xian Ji's small house. The giant ape clearly understood, and Little Black's eyes lit up slightly. Arbor glanced sideways at Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu, let me ask you something. Didn't you mention Black Spirit Jade to me before? You should have some on you. Chapter 1332. Qiuqiu immediately extended two small tree branches and repeatedly waved its hands. No, Qiuqiu doesn't have anything. When Arbor saw its guilty look, she knew that something was amiss. She pulled a taut face and tried her best to make her lips curl into a smile. She stepped forward and hooked one of Qiuqiu's tree branches. Qiuqiu, ah. Master is telling you. Master only needs 997 pieces of Black Spirit Jade. The rest is all yours. The sapling looked at her with a stupefied expression. Why the hell did these words sound so strange? If it didn't hand them over, not only would the rest belong to it, all of it would belong to it. No. Master, Qiuqiu is very poor. Qiuqiu flipped its two small tree branches over to express its helplessness and poverty. On the side, Mo Lian couldn't help but laugh when she saw this interaction between the adult and child. Qiuqiu, I'm not asking you to hand over the Black Spirit Jade now. I just want you to do me a small favor. Lend the Black Spirit Jade to Master for a while. When we find the Black Spirit Jade mine, I'll give it all to you. But what if we can't find it? Qiuqiu quivered and repeatedly shook its head. Master, I only have a little over 100 pieces of Black Spirit Jade. They are all used to replenish and save lives at critical moments. Qiuqiu. The sapling widened its small black eyes. It suddenly turned around and pointed its tree butt at her. I am leaving, Master. I just remembered that I need to go in and regulate my breathing. Only then can I stabilize my realm. Goodbye, Master. Then, without another word, it pulled Qinghuan, the little fat squirrel, and the large ape back to Paradise Planet. Leaving behind a helpless Arbor, she shook her head and said, Egg, I've already tried my best. Looks like you still have to find the Black Spirit Jade yourself. Master, why don't you also let me go to that whatever Paradise Planet? I sensed a very dense mystic energy on that tray ant. Arbor thought that it made sense. The dense mystic energy on Paradise Planet would also help the phoenix egg hatch. Why don't I refine 2 mystic gathering pills for you to help you hatch? Egg. Master, do you think I can eat pills in my current state? That's right. Arbor coughed lightly and immediately changed the topic, calling out to Qiuqiu, drag the egg to Paradise Planet. After everything was settled, Arbor simply turned off the chattering of the little ones on Paradise Planet. He looked up at Mo Lian and tilted his head. Sorry to keep you waiting. Not long at all. Mo Lian reached out and pinched her little nose. She leaned closer and whispered, I'm really curious now. I wonder what Paradise Planet has become. When Arbor thought of that beautiful mystic domain, his little face couldn't help but relax. He leaned closer to Mo Lien and said, "It's beautiful." Cough. An untimely cough came from beside the two of them. When they looked back, they saw that Guy Duanyu had unknowingly squatted beside them. He also lowered his voice and asked curiously, "What paradise planet?" Arbor patted his head and said, "I'll take you there when I have the chance." Duanyu. Mo Lien held back his belly full of laughter as he pulled Xiao Mu to her feet. On the other end, he heard a teammate shout, "Found it, found it. Everyone, quickly come over." Everyone cheered and ran over in high spirits. Sure enough, Jiaozhong Base's underground storehouse was right below the tunnel. Brother Axe led a few people to dig up the storehouse. It was as big as 2 small plazas. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1333. Everyone let out "wow, wow" sounds one after another. Their eyebrows and mouths were all full of smiles. This trip was truly worth it. Not only did they clear out the majority of the zombies in Jiaozhong Base, but they also reaped such a bountiful harvest. The underground storehouse was basically filled with stored grain. Fruits and vegetables were very scarce because they were difficult to store. There were some basic medicines, but not a lot. Upon seeing this, Arbor glanced at Mo Lien. "Bring all of this back to the Mo Kingdom capital. 2 months' worth of stored grain will be enough." With so much food stored up, Lord Song of the Ministry of Revenue would probably cry a lot again. But there's so much. Even if we fill up all of our inner worlds, we won't be able to bring it back. We'd better use carriages to escort it back, a female mystic cultivator said worriedly. Brother Axe nodded. That's right. How about we take a stroll around the city and see if we can get a few carriages? Forget it. The zombies probably tore apart all of the living creatures in the city. Where are we going to find horses? With our Jojo here, this bit of supplies is nothing. Liang Qingqing laughed heartily and hugged Arbor's shoulders. She patted her and said, "Come on, Jojo, throw out the storage talismans." Arbor couldn't help but find it amusing. She looked up at everyone and said, "Go and fetch some grain." Brother Axe stuttered, but we were paid for this trip." This. What a blockhead. Hurry and go pack. It's fine if everyone packs 100 or 200 caddies. Consider it an extra reward. Everyone performed well this time. Duanyu waved his hand, dismissing the jubilant team members to pack the grain. Most importantly, the team members were very obedient and didn't show any idiots. They worked together to complete a beautiful mission with 0 casualties, so Arbor was actually very pleased. On the other hand, the 4 superhumans in the team were a bit embarrassed. After joining the team this time, they actually didn't contribute much and even received everyone's protection and care. It was simply too comfortable to follow this kind of team. Arbor's group, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others gathered together and exchanged a few words. It was only after the team members happily finished packing and returned that Xiao Mu flung out several dozen storage talismans, storing everything in the storehouse and handing it all to Mo Lien. Minister Song must be overjoyed. Mo Lien shook her head in amusement. So many bad things have happened, so just let him be happy. Xiao Mu looked up at the sky aloofly. It seems like it's going to rain soon, a female mystic cultivator said softly. A string in Xiao Mu's brain seemed to have been pulled taut in an instant, stretching taut with a bang. Rain. It's raining. Mo Lien and Duanyu also shouted in unison. The 3 of them looked at each other and understood that they were thinking the same thing. This is indeed a good idea. TSK TSK. Eldest Qin clapped the fan in his hand and nodded as he muttered to himself. Situ Yi, who was standing at the side, also understood. His eyes widened in shock. Is that really the case? Hey, hey, hey. You guys, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Liang Qingqing poked Situi and looked at them in bewilderment. Someone injected zombie poison into Zhaozhong base. You mean these zombies didn't appear by chance? But man-made? Chapter 1334. Eldest Qin's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but laugh. You didn't just find out, did you? Liang Qingqing was momentarily at a loss for words. After a few seconds, she nodded. That's right, I just found out. She really wanted to burst into tears. Everyone was smart, but she was so stupid. Everyone couldn't help but laugh as they glanced at her. Junior sister Liang, we're talking about why Zhaozhong base's water source was destroyed. That's because someone secretly took advantage of the rain to throw corpse poison down from the sky and mix it with the rain, Situi explained. So that's how it is. Liang Qingqing looked like she'd come to a sudden realization. She abruptly turned to Mo Lian and asked, Your Highness Crown Prince, then won't the other fortifications also be invaded like this? If there's a first, there'll be a second. Mo Lian coldly said, Right now, the most important thing is to pass down the order that it's best to put up a protective barrier over all the water bodies. This would definitely require a lot of effort. Some poor fortifications might not have large defensive mystic artifacts or the like. Right. Liang Qingqing nodded like a chick pecking at rice, especially those pawns in the city. They're the easiest to manage. First, control them. It doesn't seem like there's any use just having people standing guard over there. We need to add a protective barrier. Or maybe build a roof or something. I can provide some protective talisman arrays. They can last longer than a protective barrier. Currently, they can last about half a month, Arbor said with a nod. Junior sister, then I'll have to trouble you too much. Liang Qingqing nodded gratefully. This was for the sake of all the common people in the Mo kingdom. Liang Qingqing simply couldn't imagine what kind of hell this world would become if they completely lost every clean water source. That definitely won't happen, Arbor said with a resolute expression. She'd already experienced it once. The water source had turned into filth, and many people had died of thirst after losing their water source. This kind of death was extremely despairing. Protect the water source. Everyone clenched their fists and roared with high fighting spirit. Protect the water source. Eldest Qin chuckled as he looked at everyone. All right, we've rested enough. Did you guys feel it? After the previous 2 earthquakes, many corpse puppets rushed here. Although there aren't as many as before, there are at least hundreds and thousands of them. Then let's fight. Everyone was in high spirits. Let's go up first. Everyone nodded. Just as they walked up from the underground warehouse, they bumped into more than 10 members from Rice City. When they saw the people from Arbor, their expressions changed slightly. They quickly ran over and looked at the underground warehouse. Soon after, a few of the valiant members among them started cursing, "Fuck you. They didn't even leave us a single grain of rice. Isn't this too immoral? Of our 200 members, only a dozen are left. In the end, we didn't even get a single grain of rice. How are we going to hand in the quest when we get back?" This mission to clean up and collect supplies at Zhaozhong base had actually caused 90% of them to lose their lives. The rest didn't even get a single hair. How could they accept this? Eldest Qin's eyes flashed, and he laughed mockingly. Who told you to be short-handed? Who can you blame? You guys. Callie was just about to step forward when she was pulled back by the leader of Rice City's operation team. The leader was in his 30s and wore a suit of green armor. Chapter 1335. The leader was in his 30s and had a burly figure in green armor. While speaking to Mo Lien and the others, this person spoke extremely quickly, rattling off everything like a bamboo tube. Everyone, I believe that everyone came to Jiaozhong Base for the same purpose, to carry out this cleanup and material collection mission. We set off from Rice City and were besieged by many zombies here. Now that we finally broke free, we sacrificed 90% of our team members. Then shouldn't everyone be a little friendlier to us? Even if you don't give us half of the supplies, at least give us 1/5 or 2/5 of the supplies so that we can bring them back to Rice City to complete the mission. Otherwise, this is too unreasonable. TSK, a female mystic cultivator in Arbor's team, snorted disdainfully. Please, we're not running a charity. We're all here for a mission and have nothing to do with each other. You're making it sound like we owe you. That doesn't make sense, right? Friend, what you're saying. Leader, why are you being so long-winded with them? Callie suddenly took out a carved token from under her skirt and waved it in front of everyone. Jiaozhong Base was originally Rice City's territory. All the supplies belonged to Rice City. Now, I order you to hand them over, or else. Oh. I'll go. A small commotion came from Rice City's team. Just as Callie was blabbering on, a middle-aged team member suddenly pounced from behind and hugged Callie from behind. He opened his mouth and bit the back of her neck. Oh, oh, oh. Rice City's team members cried out in horror. Heavens, this person has mutated. The leader turned around and chopped off the head of the team member who had pounced on Callie with one slash. All the Rice City team members scattered in all directions, leaving a large empty space in the middle for Callie and the leader. Carly covered the back of her neck, which was stinging with pain, and let out a piercing shriek. Don't be nervous. Just as the leader was about to speak, he caught a glimpse of Arbor's team from the corner of his eye. They took up their stances and aimed at Callie, ready to attack. Don't attack, don't attack. The leader gestured for everyone to stop. He was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. It's fine. He'll be fine. You're lying to yourself. Brother Axe roared, someone in your team has mutated, but you've been kept in the dark. No, that's not it. Cut the crap and kill this woman. No, don't attack, don't move. The leader stepped back while protecting Carly. He glared at Axe brother and the others. What are you doing? Didn't you see that she was bitten? She'll mutate soon, okay? Liang Qingqing frowned. You're not helping her, you're harming your entire team. We have a way to suppress the zombie transformation. The leader roared. Ni Shang, come out. At the back of the Rice City team, a girl who looked to be about 17 or 18 years old walked out. She had 2 braids and her cheeks were flushed red. That girl bit her finger and grinned foolishly. She stared at Duan Yu in a daze, looking like she couldn't pull her gaze away and couldn't walk anymore. Arbor's team all turned to look at Duan Yu. The latter was originally leisurely fanning his raven-bone fan, but his handsome face stiffened when he saw that girl's infatuated gaze. Chapter 1336. Pfft, eldest Qin snickered mischievously. Oh, you've hit it off just like that. Jojo. Duan Yu immediately hid behind Arbor. The little fellow extended 2 fingers and compared the distance and direction of their line of sight. Suddenly, she raised a small hand to block Duan Yu's front and hollered, "What are you looking at?" Now that she was standing in front of everyone, it felt like she had someone to rely on. Although the little lady was petite, her image immediately grew taller in everyone's eyes. Situ Yi twitched his mouth and threw Duan Yu a look of disdain for being a good-for-nothing. Then, he stepped forward and asked, "Leader of the Rice City team, are you trying to tell us that Miss Anai Shang from your team can help suppress the zombie poison's mutation?" "That's right." The leader nodded and glared fiercely at the love-struck Anai Shang. "Hurry! Treat Callie." Anai Shang foolishly glanced at Duan Yu a few more times and was kicked twice by the leader before reluctantly retracting her gaze and walking to Callie's side. "The wound is here. Anai Shang, hurry up." The leader pointed at the back of Callie's neck where she was bitten, indicating for her to act quickly. Anai Shang smacked her lips and reached out to place her right hand on the back of Callie's neck. Everyone saw her right hand emitting a faint glow, and their noses were instantly filled with a faint medicinal fragrance. "Wow!" A female mystic cultivator from Arbor's team sniffed and commented, "What a rich medicinal fragrance." Standing next to Xiao Mu, Mo Lian's eyes flickered, and he only glanced at that girl called Nick Heng before retracting his gaze. "You've never seen an apothecary before, right?" the leader of the Rice City team said smugly to Arbor's team. "It's normal that you haven't." "What apothecary?" Brother Axe and the rest had indeed never heard of apothecaries. After all, apothecaries had always been very rare superhumans, so it was normal that they hadn't seen them before. "Superhumans." The leader pointed at Anai Shang and exclaimed loudly, "She's in our team. The only apothecary." Unlike those pill alchemists who painstakingly practice pill refinement, apothecaries like Anai Shang are born with a unique medicinal effect. Axe Brother and the others looked at each other in dismay. The female mystic couldn't help but ask in confusion, "You mean that she can save those mutated zombies?" An uproar broke out in Xiao Mu's 100-person team. Did the appearance of this so-called apothecary come to save all the humans on Seacombe Planet? Don't listen to his nonsense. Arbor's voice was indifferent, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. If it can really cure the corpse poison, then that member of their team wouldn't have mutated just now. Everyone thought that it made sense, and they all looked at the leader suspiciously. The leader stammered and hurriedly said, "Although we can't completely eradicate it now, as long as Anai Shang's special ability evolves slightly, then. Brother Axe and the others hissed at him. "You're screwing your teammates over, do you know that?" They all shouted at the same time. "You're the one whose head was kicked by a donkey. If you can't get rid of them, does that mean they will go crazy in the team at any time? You still don't know how to learn your lesson." "Enough." Mo Lian suddenly spoke up. "Ignore them. We'll set off immediately and head to Rice City first." Chapter 1337. "Captain, it's bad. Several hundred to 1,000 more zombies have arrived outside. They're closing in on us." The Rice City team leader's expression changed, and he hastily grabbed Callie's wrist. He took the token from her hand and waved it in front of Mo Lian and the others. "Although I don't want to do this, this is Rice City Base's token. Seeing this token is equivalent to seeing the city lord. I order you to hand over all the supplies you've gathered." Everyone rolled their eyes at the sky in unison. "Hey, punk, are you here to be funny?" Brother Axe looked at the level 10 mystic cultivator in front of him and snorted disdainfully. These people were definitely crazy. Otherwise, why would they want to snatch supplies from them when they were facing a formidable enemy? A few shrimp soldiers and crab generals dared to spout nonsense in front of their 100-man team of great mystic cultivators. Who exactly gave them such courage? Mo Lian didn't waste her breath on him and directly fished out a black token from her sleeve. She waved it in front of the team leader. "The Mo capital fortification has confiscated all of Jiaozhong Base's supplies. If there's anything, have your city lord talk to me." The Rice City team leader's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Of course, he recognized the token in Mo Lian's hand with a dragon claw imprinted on it. That was the highest MO capital basis token. Puffing sounds came from outside the crumbling earth wall, and a dozen zombies appeared in front of them at the same time. Go, 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 go. Go. The Rice City team leader could only temporarily give up on collecting supplies and lead the team in running. Liang Qingqing couldn't resist snickering. She shook her head and said, "Where did they find this weirdo? How can he be the captain like this? No wonder the entire team was almost wiped out. Let's go." Mo Lian pulled Arbor's small hand and also led the team out of the collapsed City Lord's estate. Along the way, everyone frequently looked back and used mystic energy to dispose of the zombies that wanted to approach. They had already encountered tens of thousands of zombies before, so these several hundred to 1,000 zombies were simply a piece of cake to them. In order to dispose of the zombies as quickly as possible, the 100-man team automatically formed 20 small teams. Every 5 people formed a team and cooperated to kill the remaining zombies. Fighting and running at the same time, they quickly left the vicinity of the City Lord's mansion. That woman called Carly has been poisoned. I have to find an opportunity to deal with her. Liang Qingqing extinguished one of the corpse puppets behind Situ Yi with a burst of profound energy. With a sweeping kick, she swept the other corpse puppet away. Dozens of profound energy simultaneously struck the corpse puppet's head on the ground, turning its head into a hornet's nest. Boom! A streak of lightning flashed across the horizon. Everyone raised their heads and looked over. It's going to rain. Arbor tightened his grip on Mo Lian's hand. He had a bad premonition. Do you think they'll do it again? Very likely. We have to get to Rice City base before the storm. Mo Lian called out and summoned the Golden Dragon 7th Yen. The members of the 100-man team immediately lined up and jumped onto the back of the Golden Dragon. A few members of the Rice City team cried out excitedly, "Wow, it's their mystical beast." Their mystical beast is actually a legendary dragon. Oh my god, you're wrong. It's not a mystical beast. It should be a sacred beast, a golden dragon. Quick, quick, let's follow them. This golden dragon's speed must be very fast. We'll definitely be able to return to the city before the sky turns dark. Just as the members of the Rice City team took a step, they heard a dragon's roar and the golden dragon swung its tail. Chapter 1338. The Rice City team members! These people actually abandoned them and ran straight back to Rice City. Damn it! Callie touched the wound on the back of her neck and said to the team leader, Zhonghua, even if they reached the entrance of Rice City, they might not be able to enter. That's right. Another person cried out indignantly. He turned around and suddenly roared in shock. Suddenly, he was grabbed and pressed down by a zombie that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Bam! The man and zombie fell to the ground like a human pyramid, causing a series of screams. Callie hurriedly jumped onto a mystic beast summoned by the team leader, Zhonghua. The two of them yelled at the other team members, "Let's go." There were less than 10 people left. They hurriedly abandoned the team member who was being pressed down by the zombie and hurriedly fled. Save me, save. The member of the Rice City team managed to pull out a bloodied and broken palm from the gap between the zombie's bites. He gradually fell weakly to the ground. Arbor sat beside Mo Lian and looked at the chaos below. Then, he blocked out the screams of the Rice City team members. These people are really funny. Arbor shook his head and said. That team leader, in what way did he look like a truly responsible and capable leader? Going on a mission was simply a joke. Mo Lian reached out and stroked his waist. He squeezed gently and said, Jojo, I'm just worried about you. What do I have to worry about? Arbor turned to look at her. But speaking of which, after this battle, I realize that my body is still quite weak. When facing a spirit realm expert, the weakness of my body was revealed. Silly girl. Mo Lien smiled and shook her head. After all, you haven't broken through to the spirit realm. The strength of your body naturally can't be compared to a spirit realm expert. There must be a way to improve it. She looked at him with bright eyes. For example, she could refine a few body forging pills suitable for her. Or, Master, I have a bone forging pill here. Do you want to try it? At this moment, Chucho suddenly interrupted her thoughts and communicated with her spiritually. Master, this bone forging pill is a little fierce. You might feel uncomfortable for a while after taking it. But after 3 days, your bone marrow will definitely be greatly improved. If it's so effective, why didn't you give it to me before? Chucho mumbled. How could Chucho take it out in the past? Furthermore, with Master's previous cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to withstand such a powerful bone-forging pill. In that case. Arbor thought for a moment and said, well, let's talk about it when we get back to the capital. There was no need to mention Little Seven's flying speed. She brought everyone to the entrance of Rice City in the evening. Contrary to leader Zhonghua's expectations, Rice City didn't stop them from entering the city. In fact, when the Crown Prince revealed his identity, the guards were so shocked that they rushed in to report. When Rice City's city lord heard that His Highness the Crown Prince had personally come, he was so scared that he pissed his pants. He hurriedly led everyone to welcome him. When City Lord's son led everyone into the City Lord Manor and was ordering people to serve their meals with an obsequious smile, the rain that had been struggling for a long time finally came pouring down. Mo Lien walked to the window and lifted the curtain with her slender fingers to look outside. Arbor quickly walked to her side and stuck out his little head to take a look, but he suddenly grabbed his little hand. Arbor blinked and asked curiously, what did you see? Chapter 1339. No. The rain was quite heavy this time, and the chilly drizzle seeped into the window. A silver-threaded cloak appeared in Mo Lien's hand, and he draped it over Qiao Mu before pulling her to the table to sit down. I'll go out to take a look later. Stay inside and don't come out. However, Arbor shook her head and said, I also want to go out and take a look. Mo Lien paused as he held her hand. Just as he was about to speak, there was a sudden knock on the door. He turned around and dryly said, Come in. A string of servants walked in while carrying plates of food. They bowed submissively and respectfully before placing the food on the table one by one. Your Highness, do you have any other orders? Mo Lien waved his hand to dismiss them before holding Arbor's small hand and saying, It's raining heavily, so I'll go take a look first. I'll call you out if there's any movement. You were injured today. He pulled her into his arms and said softly, Don't make me worry anymore. Arbor pursed her small mouth and nodded helplessly. Stay here and eat. Mo Lien grasped her small hand and planted a light kiss on the corner of her forehead. Afterwards, he let go and smiled faintly at her. After standing up, he quickly walked outside. The moment Prince Mo left, he called out to the next room, Duan Yu, what are you waiting for? Duan Yu heaved a long sigh and flashed to his side. You never call me when there's good news, but you always bring me with you when there's bad news. I say, where are you guys going? I'm going too. Situ-Yi also hastily dashed out of the room and caught up with the two. Arbor propped up her chin with one hand and picked up her chopsticks to poke at the dishes. She casually moved her chopsticks a few times before glancing at the rain outside the window again. Actually, that small injury of hers. Arbor gently lifted a corner of her clothes and looked at the smooth patch of skin on the left side of her waist. She was also a bit puzzled. It was obvious that the old witch's fire dragon tail had swept across this area before, but before she could apply any medicine on it, the wound had mysteriously disappeared by itself. She had asked Chocho if this was the effect of its wood spirit's endless growth. However, Chocho also felt that this was a little strange. It said that even wood spirits couldn't repair themselves so quickly. At the very least, the wound would have to wait until tomorrow to heal. But now, without her knowledge, the wound had healed on its own. In addition, Arbor did not feel anything wrong with his internal organs that were injured by the black double-headed crow sound wave. He should have been cured as well. That's pretty weird, alright. She propped up her chin, picked up a piece of braised pork that looked pretty good, and stuffed it into her mouth. She chewed for a while, then frowned and spat it out. The meat was dry and unpalatable. The moment he ate it, he could tell that the ingredients were not fresh anymore. But in this day and age, it was good to be able to eat and drink like the mayor. Arbor had never been picky about food. But this red braised meat was too disgusting. She picked a few vegetables with her chopsticks, and after eating, she felt a little sleepy. After a few consecutive battles today, she had used up a lot of her profound energy. She originally wanted to lie down casually on the bed and continue to pay attention to Mo Lien and the rest's movements in the middle of the night. Who would have thought that she would actually fall asleep carelessly? She slept all the way until dawn and did not even wake up in the middle of it. When she woke up, it was already late in the morning. When Arbor sat up from the bed, she had a dazed look on her face. It was only when she heard the door creak open that she turned her head around in a daze and looked at the two servant girls who came in through the door. Chapter 1340. Didn't she say that she would personally subdue the Nightco birds? How did she fall asleep? Arbor's short-circuited string was pulled back, and the two maids also came forward while shouting, "Crown Princess! Crown Princess, you're awake." Arbor looked at them with a blank expression and nodded mechanically. "Where's the Crown Prince?" "Crown Princess, you don't know. Last night, His Highness the Crown Prince, together with 3 young masters with extraordinary skills, killed 8 strange birds." When the young maid mentioned this, her face was flushed red, as if she had killed those 8 Nightco birds. Another person cupped her face and said with a love-struck expression, "Heavens, such a big commotion in the middle of the night last night had awakened everyone in the city." The heroic bearing of the 4 young masters on the city gate tower was simply too impressive. Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. "I'm asking you where the Crown Prince is. What the hell are you blabbering about?" Arbor got off the bed and ran to wash his face and rinse his mouth. "Crown Princess, do you know how powerful His Highness is? His Highness broke the wings of that strange bird that was cawing with his bare hands and pulled it down from the sky." That's right, that's right. That Sither young master is really good. Are you guys done being love-struck?" Arbor grabbed one of the young girls who was holding her face and slapped his head heavily on her head. "I'm asking you where the Crown Prince is." This voice was soft and crisp, and the sound almost broke through the 9 heavens. After half a cup of tea, the maid pouted and held her head that hurt from the slap. She led Arbor all the way to the back garden of the city lord's mansion. After yesterday's rainstorm, the rain washed the ground clean. Lustrous water droplets hung on the treetops and branches. At a glance, the world seemed to have been washed a bit brighter. After bringing Arbor to a small moon-shaped arched door, the maidservant pursed her lips and poked her head inside. "His Highness ordered that no one is to disturb him. He and the other young masters are inside." Arbor rolled up his small sleeves and turned his head to point at the many women hanging on the outer wall. He asked in shock, "What are they doing? Fuck, are these women crazy? Why are some of them holding banners in their hands? You came to the city lord's mansion to demand payment. What debt collector?" Crown Princess, you don't know. At the mention of this topic, the young maidservant's voice became softer and softer. With a flushed face, she said in a love-struck manner, "Last night, His Highness the Crown Prince and the 3 young masters rushed up the tallest tower of our rice city like the wind and fought a fierce battle with those strange birds. His skills are really too cool, okay?" Arbor raised his hand and slapped the back of the maidservant's head. "Get to the point. They saved all the citizens in the city and are now the best husband candidates in the hearts of all the young girls in Rice City. They have now been conferred as Rice City's 4 great handsome men by the girls and have successfully leaped to the top of our Rice City's 10 great handsome men ranking." Arbor snickered, but soon after, her little stoic face tensed up. And then she freaking still couldn't hold it in and started laughing uproariously. The maidservant leading the way was a bit dumbfounded. She stared at her blankly and asked, "Crown Princess, are you unhappy that His Highness is so popular?" This smile was probably a fake one, right? Otherwise, how could she smile so stiffly? It was like a fake smile. She was probably fuming mad on the inside. "Arbor, Rice City's 4 great handsome men, ha 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 ha. What a great honor." Chapter 1341. Arbor's figure flashed, brushing past the maidservant as she walked towards the small arched door. The 2 city lords' estate guards guarding the door jumped in fright and hastily shouted, "Who goes there?" When they saw that it was Arbor, they hastily cupped their hands at her. "Greetings to the Crown Princess." This humble one did not see clearly that it was the Crown Princess. "His Highness has instructed that unrelated people are not permitted to approach this rear garden." Arbor waved her hand and directly ran towards a place in the rear garden, following their auras. She ran past the rockery and winding corridor, and when her figure brushed past the vicinity, she involuntarily slowed down. Before her was a scene of withering branches and yellow leaves, but the 4 people in this scene truly made one unable to look away. The 4 great beauties of Rice City were currently sitting under a half-withered tree, sipping tea and chatting. Mo Lien and Duan Yu were both dressed in snow-white robes, each holding a jade cup. Situ Yi was dressed in black, and he was fanning himself from time to time. Eldest young Sir Qin was dressed in an enchanting purple robe, and together, they truly gave off a picturesque feeling. It felt like even under a withered tree, they were also ethereal. Situ Yi was the first to see Arbor running over, and his eyes brightened as he stood up and walked towards her. "Little junior sister, you're awake." When Arbor saw him, she instantly recalled the title of the 4 great beauties of Rice City and couldn't hold it in anymore. This country bumpkin title was truly too hilarious. She pointed at him and tried her best to keep a stoic face, but she instantly burst into laughter. In Situ Yi's shock, the folding fan in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter. Duan Yu flashed over and excitedly ran to her side. "Jojo, why are you smiling at Situ Yi and not me?" Just as he was about to hook her sleeve, Mo Lien swiftly ran to his wifey's side and anxiously carried her over. He reached out to rub her small face and sternly said, "You're not allowed to laugh." Vexing, how could she laugh so happily in front of another man? He reached out to caress her little face again. "Laugh when we get home." Xiao Mu retracted her smile at once, but when she met Mo Lien's phoenix eyes, she couldn't hold back her laughter again. Mo Lien's eyes couldn't resist smiling, and he reached out to pull his wifey into his embrace and pat her. "What is it? Quickly tell me, which idiot made my Chow Chow so happy?" "Lien, you've become the number 1 of the top 10 handsome men in Rice City. Other than that, the 4 of you have also been crowned as the 4 great beauties of Rice City." Arbor laughed out loud. Eldest Qin's eyes flickered as he looked at Arbor. He pointed at himself with his folding fan. "We?" Arbor nodded repeatedly. He couldn't restrain the smile in the corner of his eyes. He looked at Mo Lien with curved eyes and said, "I'm a little curious." I wonder what the other 6 handsome men in Rice City look like. Alas, isn't that simple? Just get someone to bring them here. Situee was a clown, and he casually added, causing the other 3 to glare repeatedly at him. Situee, fuck, he was indirectly admitting that he was one of the 10 great beauties of Rice City. Let's talk about that strange bird from yesterday instead, Mo Lien said softly as he rubbed his wifey's face. Arbor looked at him and said while stifling his laughter, there's a large group of women outside hanging on the wall to look. They want to witness the elegance of the 4 great beauties of Rice City. Eldest Chin choked on his tea. Duan Yu took a deep breath and waved his hand to shout, someone come. Go invite the people on the 10 great beauties of Rice City here. Chapter 1342. The original 10 people on the ranking list of Rice City's 10 great handsome men were all invited into the city lord's estate's back garden. This action immediately caused the girls hanging on the outer wall to shriek and shout crazily for a while. However, when Mo Lien and the others saw the true appearances of Rice City's 10 great handsome men, their handsome faces nearly contorted from anger. These 10 people dared to rank with them as Rice City's 10 great handsome men with their appearances. Ah, pooh, pooh, pooh. They weren't some Rice City's 10 great handsome men. Among the 10 people, other than the delicate scholar with his nose in the air who looked like a dog, the other 9 were simply ugly and unbearable to look at. However, seeing how Jojo was so amused that she couldn't stop laughing, they didn't feel like bickering with these repulsive people. After admiring them for several minutes, Mo Lien waved her hand and had the people chase these handsome men out. Not long after, the royal guards ran in and excitedly reported that those young girls hanging on the wall had all gone to chase after Rice City's 10 great handsome men with amorous feelings. Situee spat out a mouthful of tea and then pretended to leisurely wipe the corner of his mouth. Cough, it looks like our Mo Kingdom capital's 10 great handsome men ranking is the true ranking without any exaggeration. Eldest young Sir Chin shook his head while fanning himself. Right, I'd rather be ranked on the same level as second Chin. I don't want to be ranked on the same level as those repulsive melons. Duan Yu quickly poured himself a cup of tea to calm his shock. Don't you guys agree? Situee and the others nodded repeatedly, expressing great agreement. When eldest Chin turned around, he discovered that the little stoic was no longer smiling. She had switched back to her original stoic face and was expressionlessly looking at them. Why did he feel like this child was so funny? Let's talk about what happened last night. You guys showed off your skills and charmed all the unmarried young girls in Rice City. It was such a big commotion, yet she fell asleep. Thinking about it now, she really wrung her hands. The 4 of them twitched their mouths. We did slaughter 8 night birds. Mo Lien held her small hand and said, however, we didn't obtain any more useful information. We couldn't find any clues from those night birds. Chin De chuckled. It's not a secret if it can be found so easily. The reason why a secret was because it was well hidden. How could he reveal himself so easily? Everyone was speechless. Arbor tilted his head and glanced at Mo Lien. Don't worry. Just instruct the various fortifications to make preparations. As for the future, let's talk about it later. Mo Lien nodded. All right then. We'll leave this afternoon and return to Guanlon. Arbor's paralyzed little face instantly revealed a lively teasing expression, which fell into Mo Lien's eyes and almost stunned him. Aren't you going to stay here and enjoy the glory of being one of the top 10 most handsome men in Rice City for a few more days? Thank you. Situee speechlessly added, right now, I feel that the Mo Kingdom's 10 great handsome men are more suitable for me. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. How dare you stop me? He must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. A familiar voice was heard, and they all exchanged glances. Judging from this voice, it seemed to be the leader of that Rice City team, the one called Zhonghua. Situi poured another cup of tea for them and looked up at the arched door, only to see that leader leading his team over in a flurry. Chapter 1343. The few of them exchanged glances and raised their heads to see Zhonghua, the leader of the group, charging over noisily with 9 people. "We actually let you enter the city without a hitch." The leader glared at Arbor's group. "Otherwise, what are you going to do?" Eldest young Sir Qin tapped the folding fan in his hand. "You're not so naive as to think that we're still waiting in line outside the city, right?" "You. What exactly do you want to say?" Situi asked the leader curiously. Zhonghua. Zhonghua. City Lord's son hastily rushed over upon receiving the news and looked awkwardly at his eldest nephew. "Zhonghua, don't be rude to His Highness the Crown Prince's group." Leader Zhonghua was taken aback, and his gaze shot towards Mo Lian's group again. It turned out that the group from the Mo Kingdom capital really had such a powerful background. However, he was unable to swallow his previous indignation. "Uncle. I didn't want to say it at first, but the team that the Crown Prince brought was truly too much." Ignoring the incessant looks that his uncle, City Lord's son, was sending him, leader Zhonghua rambled on endlessly. "Uncle, you don't know how infuriating they are. Not only did they plunder all of Zhaozhong Base's rations, but they didn't bring us along with them. They actually didn't bring us along on the return trip and left us at Zhaozhong Base. We were almost besieged by hundreds of zombies. Didn't your Rice City team head to Zhaozhong Base for a cleanup mission?" Arbor interrupted him and said indifferently, "If you can't even clean up several hundred zombies, then what are you going to do? Do you want to take a stroll?" "You." The leader was enraged. "Zhonghua." City Lord's son reprimanded. "Don't be rude in front of the Crown Princess. You brought more than 200 people out, but less than 10 have returned. Are the lives of your teammates not worth their lives?" Arbor glanced indifferently at Callie, who was behind the leader. "Grab her." "Ah. What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" 2 black-clothed shadow guards immediately appeared next to Callie and pinned her arms behind her back. "Deal with her." "No, you can't deal with me. What right do you have to punish me?" Carly widened her eyes in horror and kept struggling in the hands of the 2 secret guards. "You're talking about qualifications with me when your infection period will end in less than 4 hours and you're about to mutate." Xiao Mu looked at her exasperatedly. Then, he turned to look at Zhonghua. "I think you need treatment for your brain. You brought something that could explode at any time back to the city and placed it in the City Lord's mansion. Do you want Rice City to become the second Zhaozhong base?" "No, that's not true." Zhonghua was a little anxious. He turned to look at City Lord's son's incredulous eyes and hurriedly explained, "Uncle, don't listen to her nonsense. She doesn't know anything. As for Carly's injuries, we've already contained them. With Enai Shang around, there won't be any problems." The foolish girl named Enai Shang bit her finger as she smiled at Duan Yu. Her smile made Duan Yu's hair stand on end, and he shrank back into the group. "Are you stupid? There won't be any problems. Then why did that man in your group suddenly jump out to bite people and mutate?" Liang Qingqing couldn't bear it any longer and bellowed at Zhonghua. "Zhonghua, you can't be that muddle-headed, right?" City Lord's son looked at Carly in horror and involuntarily shrank back. "Uncle, nothing will happen at all right?" Zhonghua retorted impatiently. Chapter 1344. Capture them all. Mo Lian's frigid words stupefied the remaining members of Rice City's team. Take them all out for inspection. If there are any problems, deal with them on the spot. Prince Mo's icy voice caused the hearts of the Rice City team members to tremble violently as they felt a chill in their bones. And you? The Crown Prince turned around and pointed at City Lord's son, who was trembling incessantly like a quail. Appointing people based on nepotism. Don't you know how much this nephew of yours is worth? You actually let him be the leader of Rice City's team and lead a group of people to their deaths. City Lord's son only felt that misfortune was upon him, and his body went limp as he knelt on the ground with a thud. He repeatedly begged for mercy. Your Highness, please quell your anger. From now on, you are no longer the City Lord of Rice City's fortifications. Immediately send people to take over all matters here and complete them by today. Yes. Huifeng bowed and immediately strode out the door, leading people to take care of these matters. City Lord's son collapsed on the ground, dumbstruck. Everything had been fine up until just now. It was over. Everything was over. His nephew, Zhonghua, was also completely stupefied at this moment. When he came to his senses, it was as if he had been injected with chicken blood, and he immediately started making a fuss and yelling, "You can't do this, you can't. What does this have to do with my uncle? You are using public office to avenge private wrongs." Eldest young Sir Qin slapped Captain Zhonghua's head with his fan and winked at him with a smile. Do I need to use public office to avenge private wrongs against you? He shook his head and walked out, thinking that this fellow's brain was seriously lacking. The farce was quickly dealt with. The new City Lord who replaced City Lord's son was a swift and decisive character, and he was currently furiously dealing with the mess left behind by his predecessor. It was fine if he didn't deal with it, but once he did, he got a shock. The Crown Prince's prophecy really came true. This City Lord's son truly appointed people based on nepotism. The family's 7 aunts and 8 aunts who had been separated by 8 lifetimes had more or less basked in City Lord's son's glory. There were many drawbacks, but the new City Lord was quite nimble. With the Crown Prince holding the fort, the new City Lord waved his machete and cut the Gordian knot. Mo Lien and her group, who had originally planned to leave this afternoon, were delayed for an entire night because of the replacement of Rice City's City Lord. On the second day, everyone bade farewell to Rice City and flew to the Mo Kingdom capital, Guanlan City. Moreover, under the leadership of the various city lords, the various fortifications of the entire Mo Kingdom capital, large and small, also began to strictly guard and reconstruct the water region. While flying high in the sky, he saw that the nearest water vein had completely turned black. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. If Xiao Shui woke up, he could try to improve the water quality here. But now that for the time being, there was nothing he could do. 3 days later, everyone returned to the Mo Kingdom capital uneventfully and smoothly. The Crown Prince's horse did not stop to rest. Upon returning to the Mo Kingdom capital, the first thing he did was to order people to surround the Fan residence. The crime was to assassinate the Crown Prince in Jiaozhong base. This was a very serious crime. The entire Fan clan was greatly shaken, and they were surrounded by the Dragon Saliva Guards overnight. Not even a fly could escape. The captain of the Dragon Saliva Guard, Yu Xiu, personally led a team into the Fan clan to search for Fan Qiuhe. However, Fan Qiuhe had long fled without a trace with Fan Gu. Family head Fan wanted to cry but had no tears to shed as he dealt with the huge mess Fan Qiuhe left behind. All day long, he begged people to help him mediate. He sent out many good things, but the results were minimal. Chapter 1345. When Arbor returned home, Wei Ziqin nagged him a lot. She said that neither of them was reliable. The wedding was just a few days away, but he was still nowhere to be seen. It made her anxious and angry. Arbor returned home at night. Except for Xiao Zhongbang and his wife, no one else was alerted. The next morning, when the family was having breakfast, second uncle, Xiao Hu, and Xiao Mu found out that she was back. This was the first time Arbor saw second Aunt Ren after second uncle's wedding. She looked 24 or 25 years old. She looked smart and capable, and she walked with the wind. This is Jojo. Second uncle had a smile on his face. It seemed that he had been living well these days. Ren stepped forward, took Arbor's hand, and gave him a greeting gift. Then, she smiled and exchanged greetings with Arbor. Only then did the family sit down and have breakfast happily. These days, Ren had adapted to the rich breakfast of Xiao Mu. In addition to white porridge, red bean porridge, and meat buns, there were also 4 kinds of pastries for breakfast today. The Xiao family didn't have so many rigid rules when eating. The family chatted as they ate, just like an ordinary family. This made Ren like the atmosphere of this family very much. Eldest uncle and sister-in-law were kind people. Her husband was a few years older than her and was considerate and honest. After getting along with her stepson these days, they also got along very well. Therefore, Ren really had nothing to be dissatisfied with. She was even very grateful to her mother for having a good eye and choosing such a good family for her. Sister-in-law, Jojo's wedding is just a few days away. Sister-in-law, you're very busy. Remember to ask me for help. Although I haven't been married for long, I can still help with some chores. Ren said with a smile. Okay. I'm really busy these days. It's best if you can help me. Wei Ziqin nodded happily. She now saw that this sister-in-law was good in every aspect and couldn't find any fault with her. Madame Ren happily agreed. Xiao Lin stirred the red bean congee in her bowl with a spoon and muttered softly, "Big sister, you'll be living in the palace from now on. I don't know how long it will be before we meet again." Xiao Zhongbang couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth when he heard this. Ahem, other than the period when your sister is cultivating in seclusion, when else can she be idle at home? Xiao Lin thought about it and agreed. Her little face relaxed as she giggled and said, "Elder sister, then I'll go to the palace to play with you every few days." Arbor nodded. Wei Ziqin couldn't help but laugh. You're still looking for your sister every few days. Even if your sister doesn't find you annoying, your brother-in-law will. Xiao Lin pursed her lips. I'm looking for my sister. Why would my brother-in-law be annoyed? When the time comes, we can just ask my brother-in-law for a pass. We don't need him to lead the way. Wei Ziqin was both amused and annoyed as she poked her daughter's forehead. Arbor looked at the mother and daughter pair with a faint smile in her eyes. In the past few days, did Zhou Yuan's family come to cause trouble again? Arbor asked absent-mindedly. Xiao Zhongbang shook his head. They came the day after you left. After I sent people to chase them out, they never came again. Hey, but speaking of which, Jojo, do you still remember the little fatty from the richest family in our village, Zhou Tao? Arbor stared blankly. Father, you saw him. Of course. Xiao Zhongbang sighed when he mentioned this. He's now a servant of Zhou Yuan's family. I even saw him a few days ago. Wei Ziqin sighed. He's as skinny as a monkey. Chapter 1346. He's like a monkey. He's so skinny that it's scary. He was such a fat baby back then. Wei Ziqin shook her head. Arbor didn't think too much about it. Zhou Tao was already a thing of the past. She took revenge on him for kicking her down the slope when she was young. A few days after her rebirth. If her father hadn't mentioned him, she would have forgotten about this person. She remembered that when she was on the way from Shijo City to the capital, she had encountered this person who had gone crazy from hunger and raised his knife to kill people. He was a sedan bearer before, and now he was a servant. It seemed like his life hadn't been easy. However, he was considered smart to be able to survive until now as a normal person in this chaotic world. Now that she heard his name, he was just a stranger to her. She didn't feel sad or happy, and her emotions didn't fluctuate. After the meal, Arbor returned to her room. The Ministry of Rites had sent people to deliver wedding clothes and jewelry, and she needed to try them on one by one. However, after trying them on for a short while, the young lady kicked off her shoes and lazily went back to bed. When Xiao Yao entered the room and saw her little crown princess' lazy appearance, she couldn't help but be amused and annoyed at the same time. "Crown princess, you've only tried on a few pieces of jewelry. Why are you lying down already? Have you tried on the wedding clothes?" "I've tried them." Arbor scrambled up from the bed and looked at her with bright eyes. "Xiao Yao, if you marry my brother Xiao Hu, you'll be my sister-in-law in the future." Xiao Yao glared at her with a red face. "Nonsense." "How is it nonsense?" The little crown princess pursed her lips. "How about this, we'll first get used to how we address each other from now on. I'll call you eldest sister-in-law. How about you call me eldest sister-in-law?" Xiao Yao was so embarrassed that her face burned. She rolled her eyes at her, took the wedding dress and walked out. "Crown princess, you've lost a lot of weight recently. I'll ask them to change the waist of this wedding dress." With just a few words, Xiao Yao, the chatterbox, was scared away. Arbor cheered and lay down on the bed. His little hands and feet spread out, and he didn't move at all. In reality, he was talking to the little tree in his mind. Master, do you want to take a bone forging pill now? I spent a lot of effort to get it from the main planet. In 3 days, I guarantee that your body's toughness will reach a whole new level." "As if I'd believe you." Arbor shook his head. "You said 3 days, so it's definitely more than 3 days. I'm getting married in 4 days. We can't allow anything to go wrong. If she ate the bone forging pill now, if she didn't finish forging on the day of the wedding, wouldn't she be in trouble? Could it be that he still had to carry her out of seclusion, that she couldn't care less about the dignity of the royal family? She didn't want her little face anymore. There was no need to rush. She could wait for a while before forging. The little tree said, "Hey, master, what if someone comes to make trouble on the day of the wedding? Once you finish forging your body, you'll have a higher chance of winning. Forge now." If the little tree was in front of her now, she would definitely give it a few slaps on the head. She was going to get married, not to fight. Besides, the crown prince wasn't just for show. Who would dare to make trouble at the crown prince's wedding? "Alright, don't encourage me to do something unreliable." Arbor made the final decision. "Let me tell you. I don't have much, but my main strength is that I'm very reliable." The little tree. "Are you sure that's your strength? You scammer, go do what you're supposed to do. Don't bother me." Arbor was lazing on the bed and waved his arm in disdain. Chapter 1347. She suddenly thought of something. Before the sapling retreated, Arbor asked, "Where's the egg? How has it been these few days?" "Not too comfortable." Speaking of this, the sapling was a little angry. She didn't know where that egg came from, but it was always like a big boss. The moment it came, it occupied the frigid pool and didn't let anyone in except for that baboon. "The egg enslaved me." The sapling was indignant. "He made me build a fence around the frigid pool for him. He even hung a sign called Phoenix Garden or something." Arbor was speechless. Why did it sound like a brothel? The frigid pool is useful to him. Of course it's useful. The spiritual energy in the pool is dense, and I suspect that black spirit jade might be buried there. Xiao Mu scrambled up from the bed. Are you serious? Otherwise, why would he be so eager to occupy the frigid pool these few days? And not let anyone in? It made sense. Arbor felt that the sapling's analysis was right. She had previously suspected that there might be another world under the pool. Otherwise, where did the frigid star sand come from? Master, go in and kick the egg out now. Forget it. Arbor collapsed back onto the bed. Let him stay for a while, he's also pitiful. After following her for so long, he was still just an egg. Are little water, little earth, and little snake awake? No, the sapling said angrily. When his companions woke up, the first thing he would do was to get them to beat up the egg, the sapling thought secretly. An egg actually made his little master's heart soften. This wasn't a good sign. Master, do you like the egg more than Cho-Cho? The sapling asked pitifully. No. Arbor stiffly replied, don't think too much. She liked big and fierce beasts like the chestnut, and she also liked the snow leopard that she summoned for Emolien. But what was the use of liking them? They weren't hers. She only had cute things by her side. So angry. She didn't want to talk to Little Tree anymore. She turned over and rolled herself into the quilt, planning to have a good afternoon nap. However, the Little Tree was still nagging. Master Silver, has your talisman master level increased? Yes, I'm a yellow rank great symbol master now. Arbor was somewhat happy when he thought of this. Occasionally, she would wonder where the golden talisman jade tome that changed her life came from. She hugged the blanket and rolled around. I'm going to sleep. Don't disturb me. Master Silver, does that mean you can draw yellow level talismans? Of course, let me tell you. Arbor suddenly slapped his little head. Cho-Cho, I drew a god-inviting talisman, but I've never used it before. Go ahead and use it. Cho-Cho simply ran out of Paradise Planet and turned into a little tree ant, squatting on her shoulder. Master, this god-inviting talisman sounds really powerful. I also feel that it should be quite impressive. Xiao Mu responded uncertainly. With a flick of her finger, an ebony talisman appeared in her hand. With a light swipe of her finger, she activated the talisman. An invisible talisman energy spread out and burst into her body. The two of them widened their round eyes and held their breaths as they waited. 5 minutes later, there was nothing. 15 minutes later, there was still nothing. The two of them stared at each other with their watery eyes. It's okay, Master. Maybe the Supremes are busy right now and don't have time to come to the lower star sector to play. Ha! Don't be discouraged, Master. Arbor. Master invites you to the living room. Chapter 1348. Arbor's heart ached at the thought of wasting a deity-inviting talisman that she painstakingly drew. She walked out listlessly and grumpily asked, "Who's here?" "It's the Mu family's seventh master." "It's him again." Anger surfaced in Arbor's eyes. She hadn't even had the time to settle the score with him, yet he came running here on his own. There was a path to heaven, but he refused to take it and insisted on barging into hell. Kill him. A little poisonous person in Jojo's heart flaunted her prowess and hooted. She slammed the door shut behind her with a bang. Inside Miss Chiao's boudoir, a warm ray of sunlight slowly flowed onto the dressing table. As the little fellow walked, the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. This talisman patrician family simply had a grudge with her in her past life. Nothing good would come out of running into them. That Fan Gu was clearly from their family. Otherwise, how could she possibly have something like a teleportation talisman matrix? So infuriating. The Mu family's seventh master actually dared to appear in front of her after doing such a vicious thing. The angry little thing entered the living room with its defensive barrier activated, and everyone was stunned by its sudden appearance. Mu Jingrue's eyes flickered. "Jojo, what are you doing? I'm going to beat you to death." The little fellow extended her hand, and a handful of attack talismans appeared in her palm. "Come out." She couldn't fight in the living room and break the furniture. "You!" Mu Jingrue's lackey, Old Bai, angrily looked at Arbor. "Absolutely impudent." "Jojo." Xiao Zhongbang also called out to his daughter rather awkwardly. "Come back. Don't make a scene." "What? You dare to do it but don't dare to admit it." Arbor looked up and waved at Mu Jingrue. "Come out." "What did I do?" Mu Jingrue calmly walked out of the Qiao family's main hall and arrived at a small empty space in front of the door. "You harbored a grudge against me when I refused to return to the Mu family with you last time. I went to Jiaozhong base to carry out a mission, and you sent someone to kill me. Do you have proof?" Mu Jingrue raised his brows and looked at her with a spurious smile. "Does the teleportation array count as evidence?" "That middle-aged woman called Fan Gu has the teleportation glyph formation of your Divine Land's Mu family." Arbor sneered. "Impossible." Mu Jingrue stubbornly shook his head. "Not everyone has a transportation talisman matrix. Even in our Divine Province's Mu family, there are only a few people who can obtain a transportation talisman matrix. Including you." Arbor gave him a cold look. Senior White was puzzled as he listened from the side, and after a long time, he finally understood. He was immediately angered to the point of stomping his feet and jumping up as he roared furiously. "You little bastard, are you doubting our seventh master?" Arbor glanced at him and stomped on the ground as well. However, her stomp caused the stone slabs on the ground to roll up and line up into a long line, aiming for Lao Bai's face. "Old White." Mu Jingrue's expression froze. He immediately threw out 24 defensive jade talismans that surrounded Old White. Arbor stuck a teleportation talisman on himself. Damn it, he actually teleported to the back of the house in an instant. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly as she jumped out from behind the house. She took out a ferrule from her conscience and swung it at Mu Jingrue's head. Mu Jingrue couldn't help but laugh bitterly. This child's prejudice against him was gradually deepening. He didn't even know how to properly communicate with her anymore. Spiritual power trembled around him, and he immediately repelled the little fellow's ferrule. Chapter 1349. This fellow only used a bit of spiritual energy to send her ruler flying. Arbor could only twist her body in midair and tightly grab onto her ruler. Her toes lightly tapped the air as she flipped and landed in front of Mu Jingrue. "Jojo, listen to me, alright?" Mu Jingrue helplessly lowered his voice. "You're long-winded." Arbor impatiently glared at him and took a step back. "Don't come to my house again in the future. Seeing you guys annoys me to death. You darn girl, how can you not know what's good for you?" Old Bai was also enraged. "Do you think we have to shave off our heads to invite you home? We're doing this for your own good. Don't forget that your surname is Mu. You're a child of the Mu family of the Divine Continent. For my own good, for my own good." Whether or not they're sincerely doing this for my own good, I can tell from their eyes. These two big liars still want to deceive me. Scram! Arbor kicked straight at Old Bai's mouth. In his fury, Old Bai crossed his arms in front of him to protect himself. Qiao Mu's kick landed on his bulging arm, and her feet were frozen in place by the spiritual energy he was emitting. It was as if her feet were glued to his arm, and she was unable to pull them off for a while. Arbor angrily glared with her round eyes. She fished out a handful of poisonous powder from her sleeve and was about to scatter it to smoke the old man. Old Bai's eyes suddenly flashed, and he abruptly pushed her outwards. Old Bai! Mu Jingrui cried out in alarm. Old Bai actually used 70% of his strength to repel Jojo. This was bad. Arbor was pushed and jolted by this old fellow's spiritual energy. She hastily added 3 more water spiritual barriers outside her protective barrier. Even so, she still felt the chi and blood in her chest churning from the spiritual energy rushing at her. Her small body had long been uncontrollably sent flying by Old Bai. Her back crashed straight into a tree in the courtyard, and the tree immediately bent and fell to the ground with a crack. This old fellow was really quite strong. Looking at the situation, his great spiritual master rank was probably above the middle-aged woman, Fan Gu. Stinky girl, you need to know that there's always someone better out there. Don't be a frog in a well and be ignorant. Senior White laughed coldly and said, Our divine prefecture's Mu clan is willing to take you back, yet you actually dare to make all sorts of excuses. Why don't you think about the consequences? If you really offend the Mu family of the Divine Land, what do you think your adoptive parents will do? Old White. Mu Jingrui was anxious to interrupt Old Bai's speech, but Old Bai waved his hand and interrupted him instead. Seventh Master, this little girl has been spoiled rotten. She clearly doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Just treat it as me advising her on behalf of her biological parents. As soon as he finished speaking, the faces of Qiao Zhongbang and his wife changed. The Mu family of Shenzhou has gone too far. Mu Jingrui hurriedly cupped his hands at Qiao Zhongbang and his wife. Please don't be angry. Jojo has some misunderstandings about our Mu family right now. I hope that you can help persuade her. Boom. A wooden vine as thick as the mouth of a bull fiercely smashed next to Old Bai's feet. Old Bai was startled. He looked up and saw a figure gliding across the sky, suddenly arriving in front of him. The spirit-binding rope drilled out from under his sleeves and climbed up Old Bai's hands, swiftly tying them around his tanned wrists. Arbor tugged on the rope from the other end, and Old Bai's wrists were suddenly firmly bound by the spirit-binding rope. He hurriedly clapped his hands, trying to break free from the rope. Chapter 1350. However, the spirit-binding rope could even bind that guy Duanyu, let alone Old Bai, who was merely a great spiritual cultivator. Old Bai was caught by the spirit-binding rope, and he angrily kicked his leg toward Arbor. Arbor grabbed the rope and also extended a leg, colliding with the old fellow's leg with a bang. Fuck, even his bones hurt from the collision. Xiao Mu started to regret it again. If she had not listened to the deceitful tree and consumed the bone-forging pill, perhaps her body's toughness would have greatly increased, and it would not have been so strenuous when fighting Old Bai. Bang! 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 The two people swept their legs several times in succession. After a dozen or so kicks, our dear Qiao Mu abruptly retracted her small leg and grimaced in pain as she rubbed her bruised leg. Just as she angrily shook her leg and bent down to rub her aching leg, she suddenly felt a warm, gentle feeling. Suddenly, he could clearly feel a trace of warm air flowing under his skin. Wherever it passed, the pain of his broken bones seemed to ease a lot. She couldn't help but be taken aback. While she was in a daze, Old Bai, whose hands were bound, had already leaped in front of her. His hands clenched into large fists and smashed toward her head. If this hit landed, Arbor would definitely vomit blood and collapse to the ground. This old fellow truly acted quickly and viciously. Mu Jingrui quickly flew up to stop him. Old Bai. Stop right there. Arbor threw out 60 defensive talismans around his body, forming a defensive talisman array. Old Bai's descending fist was blocked by Arbor's talisman array, so it didn't actually land on her head. But even so, Qiao Zhongbang and Wei Ziqin, who were watching from the side, felt very alarmed. Their hearts were about to jump out of their chests along with their daughter's every move. Before Qiao Zhongbang could shout for help, several black figures landed beside them like specters. Qiao Zhongbang took a closer look, and his heart calmed down slightly. These young men should be the secret guards that the crown prince left for his daughter. Seeing them now, Qiao Zhongbang and his wife felt a little relieved. You just used my parents to threaten me, didn't you? Arbor stared coldly at the white-haired old man in front of him, his eyes filled with an eerie chill. I'm not threatening you, the white-haired elder said coldly. I'm just reminding you out of goodwill. After all, the Mu clan of the Divine Prefecture isn't something that you commoners from the lower star fields can resist. Arbor sneered, who are you trying to fool? If you people from the upper 3 provinces want to come to Seacombe Planet, you'll have to take some unorthodox paths. It's simply impossible to teleport on a large scale. Otherwise, the Heavenly Tao will be the first to not let you off. Arbor said coldly. Damned girl, you know quite a lot. Old Bai rolled his eyes and said coldly, you even know about the Heavenly Tao. Arbor snorted and suddenly flipped open his palm. Green vines spread out from one side of his palm, and water spirits sizzled out from the other side. He threw 2 types of spiritual energy at Old Bai at the same time. Old Bai was a little bewildered. His hands were tied, so it was inconvenient for him to fight. He could only raise his leg and sweep it forcefully in the air. The green vine in Xiao Mu's hand immediately coiled around one of Old White's legs. Abruptly exerting force, Old White's leg was forced to fall forward, and a crisp crack resounded. The gazes of everyone present became strange as they looked at Senior White. Old Bai's face flushed red. Chapter 1351. This was his pants splitting open at the back of his butt. Old Bai's face flushed bright red, and his lips trembled in anger. He stammered for a long time without saying a word, but his gaze toward Arbor became increasingly gloomy. Just as Old Bai was about to launch an attack, Xiao Mu kicked out first, landing on his left arm. Her body shot up, and she twisted the spirit-binding rope to hold on to both his hands as she stepped onto Old Bai's shoulders in an instant. Old Bai helplessly raised his hands high, his face turning even more purple and black. You guys probably don't know one thing. Ever since you guys came to find me last time, as a precaution, I secretly ordered people to destroy all the hidden special passageways or things like spatial transfer talisman matrices in the Mo Kingdom capital. Wantonly destroying these passageways meant one thing: people from the middle 6 prefectures or the upper 3 provinces could no longer visit the Mo Kingdom capital as they pleased. Once those special passageways were destroyed, it would be very difficult to construct another one within several years. As for the spatial talisman matrices, that was even easier to handle. She had already thought of a way to get it done once and for all. Only she and Mo Lian knew about this matter. Even Duan Yu and the others were unaware. Mu Jingrui's pupils involuntarily contracted when he heard this. Was it like that? This girl could actually be so ruthless and terrifyingly meticulous. Reportedly, the advancement passageway recognized by heavenly law opens once every 10 years. I think you guys can only return through that normal passageway. Arbor sneered. However, you shouldn't have to wait too long. At most, it should be 3 months. Of course, you guys can also take advantage of this passageway that opens once every 10 years to bring more people to our Seacombe planet. Arbor stood on that old man's shoulder and expressionlessly gazed at Mu Jingrui. His voice was bone-chilling ice from the netherworld. The prerequisite is that you can hide it from heavenly law. 10 years. Only 10 years' time. I will let all of you clearly know. There is no distinction between upper, middle, and lower. When I step onto the divine province, it will be the day you demons and monsters pay the price in blood. Mu Jingrui's pupils contracted fiercely. He didn't know what kind of feelings he was currently feeling. The young lady before him stood high above on Senior White's shoulder, and she looked at them with an icy cold gaze that was arrogant and indifferent. It caused him to have the indescribable feeling that everyone seemed to be insignificant in her eyes at this moment. He suddenly realized that perhaps it was because of his recklessness that the little girl in front of him was getting further and further away from the Mu family of the Divine Land. 10 years was enough to stir up a storm. Perhaps she didn't even need 10 years. White suddenly sneered, "Ignorant brat, don't be so arrogant. 10 years. Not to mention 10 years. You won't even have 10 minutes." He had decided to kill her. This little girl was too antisocial and hard to control. This kind of girl, no matter how high her talent was, it was impossible for her family to use her. He believed that the old patriarch would definitely understand his painstaking efforts. If such a person existed, it would be a threat to the eldest miss and eldest young master. With this girl's temperament, she would definitely not be willing to be inferior to others. What a pity. A little prodigy was about to lose her life here. A person's life was so short. The path of growth was filled with thorns and loneliness. How pitiful. Her life had already reached its end. Senior White's eyes darkened as he looked up. "Goodbye, little girl. You won't have it tomorrow." Chapter 1352. You can't kill me. A cold glint appeared in Arbor's apathetic eyes. When Old Bai's entire body erupted with terrifying spiritual energy, sparkling and translucent snowflakes burst forth from her fingers and collided with the spiritual energy on his body. After several consecutive explosions, Mu Jingrui and the others were isolated outside. "Try and see if I can kill you." Old Bai roared angrily. His hands tightened, but he still couldn't break free from the spirit-binding rope. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation, hating the lousy rope in his hands. "Ha!" Old Bai roared angrily and fiercely stomped on the ground. A thin layer of spiritual armor covered his chest. Following that, the muscles all over his body bulged, and his spiritual energy surged inch by inch. Mu Jingrui was shocked and madly rushed to his side. "Old Bai. Stop it. I won't allow you to harm my niece." However, at this very moment, the defensive barrier around Old Bai had already frozen the surrounding air, directly creating a spiritual energy barrier in the small plaza outside the main hall. No matter how Mu Jingrui, Lightning, and the others frantically tried to destroy this spiritual energy barrier, it was to no avail. "Die!" The old man shook his shoulders, only to see the girl's figure floating in front of him. Her expression was grave as she covered her body with several layers of water spirit barriers. Was it useful? Old Bai couldn't help but sneer. He proudly shouted, "Today, let me teach you what the true difference in strength is." In an instant, a huge wave of spiritual energy surged toward Arbor's head. Qiao Zhongbang and his wife used their feeble strength to pound the defensive barrier constructed from powerful spiritual energy. This tiny amount of strength was like an ant trying to shake a tree. It didn't budge in the slightest. Inside the defensive barrier, the huge wave of spiritual energy formed a huge transparent palm. It blotted out the sky as it slammed down toward Arbor's head. Mu Jingrui rapidly consumed the talismans in his hand, intending to break the old man's defensive barrier. Unfortunately, Old Bai's strength was on par with his, and their realms and cultivations were similar. He couldn't break through the barrier at all. Under this palm, Jojo was about to be smashed into meat paste. A fat squirrel the size of a small mountain suddenly blocked in front of Arbor. Before the white squirrel could slap it with its tail, the sky was filled with peach blossoms. They swirled and danced gently, landing on the heads of everyone present. Their clothes were stained with peach blossoms. Arbor didn't understand what was going on. He wiped the peach blossom petals on his little head and looked up at the sky. Everything was going well, so why was there a peach blossom rain out of nowhere? Could it be that the little white squirrel was playing on the peach blossom tree on Paradise Planet and brought it out when it came out? However, there was no end to the peach blossom rain. How could the white squirrel bring out so many peach blossom petals? The white squirrel Cho-Cho looked innocently at its little master. It looked up at the sky with its master, and a red dot suddenly appeared in its eyes. As the red dots continued to fall, the figure gradually revealed itself. Under the sky full of peach blossoms, a person in a red robe fluttered in the wind. Holding a pink peach blossom umbrella that only covered one person, she floated down from the sky. Pink peach blossoms umbrella. Right, it was this kind of thing that made people sick of looking at it that appeared in Chow Mu's eyes. That person turned around. His androgynous little face was so beautiful that it was almost impeccable. Bang! He pointed a finger in the distance. Old Bai, who was originally immensely pleased with himself, suddenly flushed red. Chapter 1353. How is this possible? Lao Bai watched in horror as the spiritual energy he sent out bounced back and instantly circled around him. His body also rapidly expanded in the next moment, as if Lao Bai's eyes widened in shock. Why, he couldn't say a single word. Spiritual energy crazily surged in his Dantian's mystic domain, but it was still of no use. At this moment, Lao Bai already couldn't care less about the heavenly Tao. At this moment, he had already exploded with his cultivation as a peak level 11 great spiritual master, wanting to resist. However, it was of no use. In the end, all that was left in his eyes was peach blossoms. Bang! Lao Bai suddenly self-destructed in front of everyone, and all the energy was suppressed within the defensive barrier he had set up. Several loud tremors sounded in succession, startling everyone in the residence and causing them to run in this direction. The people outside the defensive barrier were also shocked by this sudden self-destruction. They all stared dumbfoundedly at Lao Bai's miserable appearance. Turned into scattered ashes. This was the true difference in strength. Arbor blinked and turned her head to look at the red-robed man who was holding a pink peach blossom umbrella and standing at the side with a smile. His figure was slender and beautiful. He really had an appearance that could overturn a city with a smile. He wasn't any worse than her Emolien. An illusion. It must be an illusion. How could there be someone in this world who could kill a great spiritual master with just a finger? She couldn't do it to such an outrageous extent. Chow Mu secretly twisted her small arm lightly. Immediately, she didn't feel any pain. She became more and more convinced that everything in front of her was an illusion. She walked out of the defensive barrier. The man with the pink peach blossom umbrella followed her gaze and blinked. Why did he feel like he was being ignored? That old ghost was already dead, and the defensive barrier he had set up also disappeared. Chow Mu smoothly walked out of that defensive boundary, and as soon as she walked out, Wei Ziqin hugged her and bawled her eyes out. Just now, it was really too dangerous. Wei Ziqin's heart almost jumped out. She thought that she might lose her daughter forever. Arbor expressionlessly patted his mother's back to comfort her. He looked up at Mu Jingrui, who was looking at him with a complicated expression, and coldly said, "You're still not leaving?" Mu Jingrui looked at her with a complicated expression and nodded. "I'll leave now." He was too ashamed to stay here any longer. The men he had brought with him had disregarded his orders and tried to kill his little niece. He was speechless. Jojo, I hope you'll reconsider. There's one thing that old Bai is right about. Having a powerful clan will definitely be beneficial to your future. Do you think I need that? Arbor glanced at him coldly. Mu Jingrui couldn't help feeling bitter. That's right, a young genius who could draw the god-inviting talisman and invite the immortal venerable. Why would he care if others supported him or not? It was not necessarily a good thing that his little niece bore a grudge against the Mu family of the Divine Land. Lao Bai was too rash in dealing with matters. Jojo, I'll investigate the spatial talisman matrix you mentioned after I return. If I find out that it's really related to our Mu family, I'll definitely ferret that person out and hand him over to you for punishment. I hope you'll do as you say. Arbor glanced at him indifferently, not holding much hope in his heart. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.